What up?
What's up?
All right. We're back again with another Octagon event. I swear to God, I got to start automating these things, Ed. I'm so excited because today we've got some new tech. You know, these Octagon events, it starts with an idea and it just grows and grows and grows. So today we're implementing a new idea where we're going to try to get you as much magic as possible here. But before we get even into that, today we're playing the second Legacy Octagon. My name is Anuraag Das. I'm joined here with Syed. Today we're going to go over some
Hello.
sweet matches. I've seen the deck list, Zen, and they look amazing, actually. Are you pumped as I am?
Yeah, I mean, there's a 60 card death and taxes. I couldn't be more excited.
I knew you were gonna say something about that. I knew you were gonna say something about that. And quite honestly, like it really makes me happy. Just like, I mean, I know your history's in. Like, you played a lot of standard, modern. You played a lot of like historic, a lot of the more, just like competitive formats. I'll say it, right. And you
Yeah,
getting into legacy and finally like taking a stance on something is just like extremely exciting. You know what I mean? I know you've had like a
yeah.
couple squabbles with some of the more veteran legacy players, but you put your money where your mouth is in past events, and it's really good to see that come together.
No, for sure. And I hope our death and taxes player comes through to support me on my quest to get people to play 60 cards.
Factual. Yeah, I mean, Legacy's in a weird place right now, just as we're getting, set up with everything in the back end, because we're just gonna dive right into Magic as soon as it's free and available. Legacy's been in an interesting place, right? Like, Oko has been a hot topic. Dreadhorde has been a hot topic. Astrolabe, Uro, all these cards have been pretty, divisive, and I'm kind of sad because, well, obviously, like, Legacy has been in better places. But I'm happy because, decks like D&T, which, prior just like weren't part of the format, they're suddenly re-emerging thanks to certain cards, right? And that gives me a little bit of hope that, despite the fact that we're in this sort of like Simic soupy summer, that we could still have, some sort of competitive metagame that isn't just like the same old cards that, just are so powerful in the format.
No, for sure. I mean, I think the more competitive events we have, the faster the metagame will develop. Like right now there's mana traders as well as Lotus Box doing these Octagon events. If these events just happen on a weekly basis, you'll start being able to see a trend of decks that are winning and decks that aren't um putting up any results. And when people don't see those decks anymore, especially on Goldfish with these events just popping up, those decks are gonna move to one side, and you're gonna start seeing like a core group of legacy decks that are gonna be dominating all of these events. And if I had to put my money on it, Death and Taxes would definitely be part of it. I don't know which Europal exactly would get there. I mean, like the four color ones are definitely my favorite. And it seems as though when Death and Taxes continues to get better, the Terminus ones are starting to succeed more and more. So I'm like super interested to see what the metagame looks like 3 weeks from now when we've done, 4, 5, 6, 7 of these tournaments and we can see a clear trend.
Yeah, for sure. So let's I mean, get into the first feature match here. We're going to talk about the decks that we're going to see right now. And Zen, I know for a fact that this one is going to sit well with you because you've got some experience with this deck before, like before
Yeah.
like moved on to like Bomat Courier and then Death and Taxes and all these other decks. You were an Infect player at heart through and through, probably due to your modern expertise with the archetype too. So walk me through this deck. What is it trying to do and what is so good about it in Legacy as opposed to maybe like other formats?
Well, I mean, it's got such a quick combo. Essentially, it's like a mega burn deck. I like to think of this as like blue green burn because your creatures one when they're pumped, like your pump spells are like mega burn spells, right? Like scale up, become immense, invigorate. They're attacking for half of your opponent's life total a lot of times. And if you're able to pair them with another pump spell, it only takes the infect creature plus the two pump spells to to kill your opponent. I mean, Invigorate and Berserk is like the very core of the deck, but as time has gone on, new tools have been introduced. As you can see, Scale Up is the newest pump spell, making a creature a 6/4, which is super relevant because it helps you bypass Bolt. And then you have Oko and Uro, which are such strong blue-green threats that they can create a side plan for you, which I absolutely love in this deck. Like in combination of Sylvan Library, Uro, and an Oko, your side, like your secondary plans, can definitely come into fruition quite often.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that
And
I think is also kind of interesting is the inclusion of white for Swords to Plowshares. I don't know. Okay, yeah, there are a couple sideboard options too that I'm kind of interested in.
mhm.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, like Swords to Plowshare is like the best one mana removal spell right now. It deals with so many problematic threats. And I mean, like one of the hardest decks for this deck to beat has been Shadow variants, which have been popping up. So I really like Swords. Usually in banned shells you see Teferi, which makes it hard for your opponent to interact with. So it's kind of unusual not to see that. Um, but yeah, I mean the white is mainly there just for the one mana interaction. Um, it's pretty much a free splash because the deck is always going to play Noble Hierarch.
And on the other side of the table, we've got an interesting list here, which is Alurin. Pardon the sideboard not showing, but this is kind of a sweet list that I think is just, I don't know, like Alurin for me is exciting because it's just cool. You know, you get to play some of the sweetest cards in Legacy. So to be completely, well, that's my laundry. To be completely straightforward with it, the way the Alurin combo works is that once you have Alurin in play, it's a 4-mana enchantment that says it says, you know, you can cast CMC 3 or lower creatures from your hand as though they had flash and without paying the mana cost. So you get Cavern Harpy into play, and then you can leverage that alongside something like a Cauldron Familiar or a Parasitic Strix to do infinite damage. You know, just by paying 1 life with a Cavern Harpy, replaying it off the Alurin, and then bouncing the, you know, the Cauldron Familiar or Parasitic Strix, and then you just like rinse and repeat here. And we see that this is secretly actually like a bug value deck that has Alurin as a combo finish. And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. It looks like the players are about ready now. So let's get in the game here and we'll see what's going on.
Well, it's a mulligan from the banned infect side.
Yeah.
It's 7 non-lands, and then on the top side we definitely have a keep. This matchup is pretty heavily favored for banned infect. They're basically two combo decks going at each other, except for the infect side has a much faster kill. um they both interact with each other, but um yeah, I mean, Infect is just gonna put out a blighted agent and suit it up and try to protect it with lower cost threats. And Alern's not gonna be able to do much about it. I think there's like the 6 Force of Wills accompanied by like 2 Assassin's Trophies. So yeah, I mean the name of the game is definitely Blighted Agent.
Yeah, I for sure agree. It's going to be kind of interesting. I feel like this hand is actually super solid here, as Steven is going to go ahead and grab a snow-covered island here, fetching here to play around those stifle that, you know, Sam has, Fenris Cloud has in their list. First of all, shout out to Fenris Cloud, is one of the most veteran Infect players that I know, probably on par or even better than Tom Ross. I said it, you know, legacy veteran. Yeah, this is a huge praise that I'm giving out here. But yeah, this is tight play so far, playing on what you know, so might as well, you know, not lose to the stifle on turn 1. Sam's got the turn 1 Noble Hierarch, and I mean, if you've played any modern Infect, you know how powerful Noble Hierarch is in this deck.
Yeah, I mean Noble Hierarch is absolutely insane. It's a pump spell as well as mana ramp. It's everything, and it can pose as a threat. I've killed many of people with giant Noble Hierarchs that are berserking their way. And here, I mean, we're gonna see an Oko come down, and this Oko is gonna be quite a problem, especially if Steven doesn't draw another land.
Yeah, I mean there is a copy of Oko in Steven's hand, so maybe you could have something like a Oko v Oko battle in this scenario here. But we need to draw that third land here, and Abrupt Decay not exactly going to do it here with the island and the forest. So a little bit of a punish here. It's hard because you want to be able to balance your basics against your opponent's wastelands, but then when you draw your multicolor casting cards, in the form of Decay or Shardless Agent or Oko, you got to be able to balance all of that, right? So at least there's going to be a turn 2 play here, or turn 3 play here rather, in the form of Scavenging Ooze. But with Oko in play, and yeah, you're going to see it's going to get dazed. With Oko in play, it's going to be problematic for sure.
Definitely. In fact, this list is only playing one copy of Wasteland. I think that having your Abrupt Decay online at all times is just vital in this matchup. So I don't think I would have played around the Wasteland. Just a note to put out there. But I mean, not drawing lands here, this is going to definitely make things a lot more difficult.
Yeah, for sure. Ice Fang Coatl is a very solid pickup here, though, for Steven playing Alurin here. It doesn't have Death Touch quite yet, but that should be fine, given that, you're not really in the need to block something super, super scary or important here. And wow, take a look at this. This is a Noble Hierarch blocking the Jol Rail Elk and then getting invigorated for the premium cost of 3 mana.
Yeah, I absolutely love this play. Very strong play. Making Invigorate a removal spell is definitely like higher caliber infect player. Knowing when you're supposed to use your pump spells is super important, because a lot of the times your Invigorates just get stuck in your hand, and if you can't create uses for them, you're just playing the card wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing here, too, is that Sam sort of realizes that this game is not about infect damage at this stage, given that we don't have an infect creature, right? So might as well try and make sure that the Oko can stick around, because that is the name of the game here. Now, unfortunately, what Sam doesn't realize is that the Polluted Delta is finally going to unlock that Abrupt Decay in Mariok's hand, so it's not going to actually be able to go the distance, but still being able to put a 3/3 food token or elk into play is not nothing.
Definitely. And I think I would have opted to I would have definitely opted to cast a Brainstorm, just because we have the 2 Invigorates, which are actually not good at all. Being able to trade in for an infect creature and putting those Invigorates on top just leaves you with not very many Brainstorms that are bad. So I think I would have definitely opted to play the Brainstorm.
Okay.
And this is this is pretty savage.
Yeah.
It would have been hard for me not to just straight up Abrupt Decay, but you take the gamble with the Shardless Agent, and I mean, you get the payoff. You just hit your second Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, that's nice. I mean, to be totally honest here, Shardless Agent is just like, I think I could justify this play because, we're slowly getting to the point where there's no infect creature, so maybe my life total or my infect counter token total, whatever it is not really threatened here, which is, or maybe a reason where we're saying we can take the turn off here and then, just eat some more damage from the exalted elk that's in play here. So I could definitely get behind the Shardless Agent play, and the payoff is there in the form of Abrupt Decay, but even imagine if you would hit like Icewing Coatl or just even Mana or like a Cavern Harpy. There's so many good targets, which is why I think Shardless Agent is just really insane in this deck. Plus next turn you have Alurin potentially coming down, and you want to maybe hit that 5th mana source so you can go like Alurin into like Veil of Summer.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely a good point. When you're in a Alurin deck, you want to focus on the combo portion for sure. And we're in a pretty interesting spot here. Like, is the secondary plan of Oko gonna get there?
Okay.
And I mean, we're not that many points off.
Yeah.
We can actually present lethal next turn.
I gotta say, I think that the Noble Hierarchs being able to change like the monotony or of the elk v elk battle is kind of cool here. It does definitely make your Okos a little bit stronger than your opponents at times, especially when you're pushing for damage here or there. Green Sun Zenith is going to be the pickup here for Steven now, and it's kind of interesting here. With this hand, you've got Veil of Summer. You do kind of want to play around Force of Will. Sam does have that in their hand right now, with also the Vines of the Vastwood, but Oh, one thing to note, Zan, is that Sam is brainstorm locked right now, right?
Sam is brainstorm locked. But I mean, when you have another brainstorm in hand, you're not like fully brainstorm locked. Next turn should be a good turn to be able to cast brainstorm again. But I mean, Sam can present lethal next turn, so I don't think this brainstorm lock is that big of a deal.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So here comes Oko now from Steven's side. This is going to be kind of tricky here, right? Oko is really good against the infect creatures. Should Sam pick one up in the next few turns? But also, I mean, Oko is going to be really good at stabilizing the board too. So because Sam is taking the alternate route of actually dealing 20 points of damage this game, Oko making food token to gain life is going to neuter that. Oko, making food tokens into elks to block is also going to make that a little bit more problematic as well here. I get the feeling that if you're in Sam's position, you just have to force this. But since deck lists are open, knowledge of the main deck Veil of Summer is there, and it makes the decision-making process a lot more complicated for sure.
I don't think I don't think this is something that you actually want to give this brainstorm up for, because you can just pressure the Oko with your food token, and you just want to create that dynamic of, I just want to trade like everything for, like, I want to trade the whole board to try to protect this Oko. You want to create that dynamic. Also, that brainstorm is the only thing that's really getting you out of this double invigorate lock that's sitting on top of your deck.
Yeah. That's a very good point to think about too, which is that we are brainstorm locked and we do need a way to get through it. I mean, perhaps you could maybe, invent a win condition that leverages both those invigorates, but with the Ice Fang Coatl sitting on Death Touch, blocking the path to actual natural damage and the Oko making food, it just seems like it's going to be tricky. And, the Veil of Summer also is even picking up another copy of Abrupt Decay, so it's just getting harder and harder and harder. I think Steven's going to be able to stabilize this one pretty smoothly. What does Sam even have to draw here from this point to sneak out a win?
Yeah, I mean, Berserk is definitely the key card that he's looking for, and that's the main reason why I don't think I would have cast the Force of Will.
Okay.
Because you have to recognize that you're on the offensive in this position, not the defensive. You're no longer the control deck. If you force there, you're saying, I'm the control deck. I'm trying to take care of not even your main combo.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting observation. You can see sort of that. Whoa, wow, that's so interesting. Okay, so the Noble Hierarch actually came in to attack the Oko. No blocks were made, and an Invigorate is actually going to be able to take down Oko here.
That's honestly shocking. That's
very
shocking to me, because Ice Fang Coatl should be trading with Noble Hierarchs all day.
Mm-hmm. The Ice Fang does feel a little bit disposable at this point. Now that we have a second one, I have to imagine, we're going to see Ice Fang come into the red zone here. That now that we see the second one, we might be able to just like block at instant speed here. All these sort of combat tricks is what Infect is just like famous for, right? They do some pretty scary things with all these cards. And I mean, honestly, maybe for that reason, like you got to respect the Noble Hierarch a little bit more.
Definitely. I mean, this is like one of those spots where our opponent could be holding on to a Become Immense and an Invigorate or a Vines of Vastwood and attack with all three, right? And that could present lethal three different ways, and you've lost the game pretty much for like trading for one damage. So
okay.
in my opinion, if you're playing the learn deck and you're in this spot specifically, you want to play the control role. You're the control deck in this scenario right now, and attacking for Ice Fang Coatl to get in chips of damage is not what you want to be doing, because there is a world that one of these cards was a Become Immense and you actually just lost the game here, or put yourself in a position to lose. Obviously you drew the Force of Will, but things didn't pan out.
Yeah, for sure. And what's kind of interesting here is I really actually like that brainstorm. It doesn't seem like the cleanest brainstorm in the world, but when you look at the board state, you can sort of reevaluate. The brainstorm there is excellent when you have a learn and play. Maybe if you can draw something like your Cavern Harpy, you could actually just end the game on the spot at instant speed, which is kind of absurd if you think about it too, right? And with the Green Sun Zenith already in your hand, you do know that you might be able to sort of shuffle the deck, draw one of the two cards that you put back with brainstorm, but then still shuffle the deck to find something that you want here, right?
Definitely. I mean, in a spot like that, I don't think I actually cast the brainstorm. Because in response, my opponent could go become immense berserk. So, right, like you want to wait until your opponent commits to the board.
Yeah. And I mean, look at this right now. The Noble Hierarch here has 2 points of power. You can't cast the Abrupt Decay. You're locked out of that. I mean, Invigorate gives you what, 4? And then the Vines gives you maybe another 4. So realistically speaking, there is a world where you could actually win this game through damage. I mean, this reminds me actually of the finals of one of the Grand Prix, Legacy Grand Prix. It's the one that Wilson actually made top 8 with Mentor, but in that top 8 was like 4 copies of Miracles. This was back when Sensei's Divining Top was legal. And the finals was actually Joe Lisette against Clay Spickelmeyer. And and young Clay, like legit in game 3, facing down a back to basics, tapping out an Inkmoth Nexus, taps the Noble Hierarch in combat, and adds on 20 points of power in one fell swoop to take the trophy. It's pretty incredible. That's why I'm so scared about Infect in these board states, and why you have to be careful, because you could just lose out of nowhere.
Definitely, and that's what has always drawn me to play this deck. Yeah, I actually played in that event as well. And I played Infect.
Oh, all right. There you go. There you go. See? Full circle.
I had a solid 11 for my average record.
Yeah. The 11-4. The good old 11-4 here. Ice Fang Coatl going to get flashed into play here. And on the stack, we saw Blighted Agent. So keeping in mind that Allurn is actually a symmetrical effect, both players can actually use it. So you do need to be cautious sometimes in this matchup, especially if, for example, end step, your opponent flashes in a Glistener Elf or a Blighted Agent or what have you. Here.
Oh, wow. They hit the Cavern Harpy.
Oh, and it looks like that might be game.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, Steven was just drawing hot fire this entire game. Having a hand with 0 Abrupt Decays and drawing both of them, and then drawing Black Source after Black Source to put them in the position to win. Honestly, well played, and yeah, I mean, Allurn is going off. I'm shocked.
Yeah, these are some pretty solid top decks that we're seeing here. I mean, I also do think that part of the reason that this matchup played out the way it did is that we didn't really get to see any early aggression here in the form of Infect damage from Sam, right? Like, the Infect creatures are pretty notorious for just being evasive and being able to get the job done real fast, but you actually have to draw them, right? So sometimes there will be issues with the deck where, you may have like half of the quote combo, which is just like, the damage in the form of the Invigorates, which is what we saw here, right? We saw 3 copies of Invigorate in this game. Sometimes you might have it the other way around, which is where you only have the Blighted Agents or the Glistener Elves or the Inkmoth Nexuses and don't have the rest of it.
Definitely.
Just looking at the combo here, though, what's actually happening right now is Cavern Harpy is looping alongside Uro and Shardless Agent. It's actually an infinite loop, Zan, when you have Cavern Harpy plus Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath. Uro gains you 3 life, which allows you to, use one of those 3 lives to put the Cavern Harpy back into your hand, back into play, bounce the Uro, get 3 life, bounce the Cavern Harpy, rinse and repeat here with the Learn and play here. But now that we have enough life, Cavern Harpy upgrades to Cascading with Shardless Agent, and this is going to find that Cauldron Familiar much, much more quickly, right? And I think the reason that we're doing it this way is just because technically Magic Online does have some sort of like physical restraints here. When you have stuff on the line here, you always want to make your opponent play it out, unless, for whatever other reasons there might be. But yeah, I mean, keeping that in mind, what's on the line here today for first place, Ann?
I mean, first place gets $100 and an invite to another Octagon event. And I mean, this is our sixth Octagon event in what, the past like 2-3 weeks.
Yeah.
like we're just scaling up. I mean, we're like planning to do 5 next week. So like it's starting to become a reality that you can just go infinite on these events.
We actually even had our first player earlier this week. Earlier this week, yeah.
Wednesday.
Yeah, Thomas Davies actually. It's such a cool story, right? Because they won one of their first event, and then with that free entry, they simply 3-0'd their next pod, and now they're just like drowning in value, I guess, because they free rolled an entire event where they won $100, which is just like the dream.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, what was the time commitment, right? And how much money did you win, right? You won 2 of these events. You paid $20, so your value was, you made $200 minus the 20, and then you have another free invite floating, so equivalent to $200 over the course of like what, 4.5, 5 hours.
Yeah.
That's like unheard of for Magic tournaments.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So Learn's going to take game 1 down here. The combo was in play, and because you can do the combo at instant speed, no need to necessarily waste the time and kill them on the spot when you can just do it in response to a draw. That being said, let's take a look at the draws here for the sideboard. What are some of the cards you want from the infect perspective here for sideboarding?
Well, I mean, the Veils counter the main point of interaction in Abrupt Decay, which is huge. And then you got Force of Vigors, which deal with Allure itself. So, I mean, those are the 2 obvious cards that come to mind. You could be bringing in swords, but you have to find a balance where you're not losing your aggressive aspect, but you still want to interact. So I'm interested to see how many swords come in and what comes of that. But Veil and Force of Vigor are my first 2 cards that I expect to come in.
Yep, and looking at the camera myself from here, I see that Fenris Cloud actually agrees with you, bringing in the full playset of Swords to Plowshares, the 2 Forces, and the 2 Veils alongside the Savannah, just to make sure that we can cast everything, which is pretty heads up here. In terms of sideboarding from the other perspective, this is going to get a little bit tricky here because I think the MTG Melee graphic is a little bit, what have you. The sideboard is sort of mingled in with the rest of the deck here. So thinking about this real quick, there looks like there are 2 Surgicals, 2... Okay, it looks like we're cutting 2 copies of Gilded Goose. We're cutting 2 copies of Uro, 1 Oko, and even cutting 1 copy of Allurin, which is kind of interesting in this matchup. Sort of just saying that, hey, I want to play maybe more of a fair, value-based game that is, higher focused, more focused on like interacting with the board state rather than just, just trying to win on the spot.
Yeah, definitely. So I mean, looking at this deck list, you can just be a little bit more aggressive. You got Carpet of Flowers, which is huge, which is going to get you a ton of mana really quickly. And then Plague Engineer in combination with Assassin's Trophies and Abrupt Decay is going to go a long way. So the name of the game is get Blighted Agent off the field, because the rest of your creatures actually line up really well against the rest of the infect creatures, right? Mm-hmm. Flyers, Glistener Elves, all those things are dealt with. You just got to put Plague Engineer on the battlefield, name human, get Blighted Agent off, and then the game is yours. Yeah. So bringing out Allure makes total sense. I don't think I would cut any Okos pretty much ever, because they're one of the ways you can get rid of Blighted Agents in unblockable clause, make it an Elk.
All right, cool. And we're getting into game 2 here. One thing that I also wanted to mention, which was really interesting, and I kind of wish that we had seen this, is cutting the copy of Cauldron's Familiar, because I actually think in this matchup you don't need the Cauldron's Familiar to win the game. Just in the sense that because you're putting Plague Engineer into your deck, imagine this, right? Imagine a board state where you basically leverage Cavern Harpy and Uro to draw your whole deck. At the end of the turn, you have all these creatures in play. some of which are Plague Engineers. Maybe one on Ink Moth or whatever, Blink Moth or whatever the creature type is. You could have one on, for Blighted Agent. You can have one for Glistener Elf, whatever it is. And if any other creature ever enters play that would cause a problem, any other infect creature, you could always just use the Cavern Harpy, bounce the Plague Engineer, and just put it right back into play with the Alurin, right? So you don't actually need to combo kill your opponent in this matchup when Plague Engineer just does such a good job alongside the Cavern Harpy at sweeping up any problematic threats.
Of course, it's always nice to have a one of combo, right? A one card combo, Plague Engineer.
Yeah, for sure, right? Because like if you look at the card quality, having a card like Plague Engineer is sorry, the players are just getting started. Yeah. Having a card like Plague Engineer is phenomenal because not only is it an answer to your opponent's primary game plan, but you don't necessarily need like Plague Engineer or Cauldron's Familiar to win on the spot because you could just load naturally with damage, right? Like you mentioned, the creatures are still pretty good. Like Ice Fang, Oko, these cards, Uro, they all do damage. So pretty happy about that.
Definitely. And I mean, the players are off to the races. It seems as though the Infect players' clock is super, super fast, but there's no Infect creature. So, I mean, a bit of setup is going to be required. Do you fire off a Brainstorm? How hard are you looking for that Infect creature?
Yeah, that's
I actually love this play, by the way.
Okay, yeah, I like that too. I mean, Sylvan Library is certainly a juicy prize, and it's probably the reason that we actually ended up keeping the hand to begin with, alongside Noble Hierarch. Again, Noble Hierarch I gotta go on a rant here, Zan, because Noble Hierarch is so good in this deck. It like gives you the early acceleration, it disrupts the symmetry of mana in the matchup, and on top of that, it makes your creatures deal extra damage with which, when you look at it in the context of Infect, is actually just so much, right? For the price of 1 mana, you're getting an additional Infect, which is equivalent to about 2 life, and, attacking as early as turn 2 or 3, it adds up really fast.
No, definitely. And I'm actually really surprised by the way everything was the way everything played out that last turn. Looking for an infect creature in those spots, you generally want to shuffle away any of that extra fluff. So I was kind of surprised about the cards that were put back, but I mean, luckily we found Glistener Elf, which is going to pair well with these Invigorates plus
Veil of Summers.
Berserk.
Oh yeah, and Berserk. Yeah, Berserk's going to be pretty sweet here. It's going to line up quite nicely against the copy of Ice Fang Coatl in Steven's hand. Glistener Elf is going to come down here. There's a Force of Negation and a Brainstorm. A bevy of blue cards, quite honestly, here. The Force of Negation can't handle the Glistener Elf, so it's kind of interesting to see whether or not it's going to be used on maybe like a Invigorate or Berserk, or at what point we fire it off, because there is definitely a sub-game that exists here. But Brainstorm is going to pick up a copy of Plague Engineer, and that is huge on this board state.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty massive. Yeah, I mean, there's no way of getting around this. It's just gonna be brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, if there were 2 infect creatures that entered the battlefield this turn instead of 1, which was quite possible, then I think that we would see a totally different board state. And in this matchup, like a face-up wasteland is basically just a colorless land. So definitely some different decisions could have been made for this game to go differently. But I mean, this Plague Engineer is gonna be the 1-card combo that we talked about. Oh my!
Wow, and that's so. I feel like this is just maximum punishment here as we go for the Shardless Agent. I mean, drop some beats on me, Zan. What's going on here? What are your thoughts?
Veil was not respected, but I guess Daze was respected. But I don't even know.
I feel like in this board state, like with the Sylvan Library in play, I mean it's tricky, right? Because Daze is just so.
I don't approve of this play.
Yeah, I mean we'll see what happens here if it's going to cost them. But looking at this right now,
but they're dead on board.
Okay,
they're dead on board.
Yeah.
Berserk gives trample.
You get Invigorate. You get Veil. Oh yeah, look at this.
Even just cast a Veil. Like, all right, no shenanigans here. I'm just gonna fire off this veil.
Gut shot me, bro, one time. That's the request. I mean, but even if that happened, there's still a copy of Days. Sylvan Library ended up finding the Veil of Summer. Sorry, not the
Uh,
just like
Our
the
opponent can't even beat 3 gut shots, right? We could literally just go invigorate, invigorate, berserk.
this is
You're gonna
the dark timeline for sure here. Yeah. But Veil of Summer is going to resolve here. I mean, there's the Force of Negation in Steven's hand, but like it just feels so wrong using it on a Veil of Summer like this, right? And this is why maybe you should have done it, but you're dead regardless. And I think seeing the writing on the wall here, this is a huge creature coming into play here with requisite infect damage. So back to the sideboarding here. Looking at some of the cards that you mentioned, we did see Veil of Summer come in for sure, which is going to be a super, super awesome here. What do you think it's cut actually from
So what do I think is cut? It's so there's a bunch of flex spots, right? Those flex spots include the one of Stifle, the one of Crop Rotation, the one of Scale Up, the one of Become Immense, the one of Uro, the one of Oko. Those are all of your flex spots. So generally, when you know what you're playing against, that's when you bring in all your 4-ofs, or you double down on your Uro, Force of Vigor, and Veils. So you're gonna see a lot of those 1-offs cut, and then when you remove those 1-offs, then you can see like the core of the deck, which is the Brainstorm, the Dazes, the Forces, the Invigorates, and the Infect creatures.
yeah,
Right.
for sure.
So if you remove all of those 1-offs, then you can see the swords, the veils, and force find room.
So this is kind of interesting looking at the way that Fenris Cloud is now sideboarding. I see that going from game 2 to game 3, one thing that will change is that Fenris Cloud will now be on the draw, right? And what this means is that, Daze certainly becomes a lot more
A lot less
unreliable.
valuable.
Yeah, exactly. So what are your thoughts? Do you keep Daze in on the draw in this matchup?
So in this matchup, Daze is always live because it's such a mana intensive deck. So I like to keep in at least 3 Dazes. Because it's going to be able to tag a learn, it's going to be able to tag something at some point. It's like one of those impossible cards to really truly play around. When you're playing like a Delver, a low mana cost deck, it's easier to play around Daze, but in that deck, just not really possible. So I actually think it's a mistake to board out all of your Dazes, even though that's like one of the golden rules of Legacy,
Yeah. No,
right?
I
Like
I definitely agree with you there. I think Dazed is definitely one of those cards that's just so fluid and really does respond to a function of what your opponent is doing here. And right, like in this list, you can see 3 copies of Oko, right? There's multiple copies of Uro, Plague Engineer, Shardless Agent. Daze not so good against that, but Leovold, even Allurin, right, is a very expensive card here. So you know that Daze might be able to trade very well against those things, just because tapping out is not going to necessarily be that easy, or sorry, that your opponent's gonna be spending all their mana, and you want to punish them for tapping out.
no, for sure. And Daze is actually a card that does play well against Shardless Agent. I think that's like a misconception. In this matchup, a 2/2 means absolutely nothing, right? Literally, if you're even on your secondary plan of Oko, your Elks are literally better than a 2/2 body, right? So, like, in my opinion, I think that Daze is like still even good against something it's supposed to be bad against.
Yeah, for sure here. And looking at the hands here, it appears that both players are going to keep 7 cards. Mariak on the play. So, I mean, this seems like a much better hand than the other, what we saw earlier. We've got Icewind Quaddle coming down on turn 2 with a copy of Brainstorm to fix our hand. We've got removal in the form of Assassin's Trophy. And we have Plague Engineer, right? And we saw in the last game that there was a decision tree where you could choose to play around Daze or, try to just get rid of the Glistener Elf here. We'll see what happens with this Plague Engineer, whether or not it gets played on turn 3 on curve or not. But that exactly is the position where you might want to be able to, use those dazes that we were talking about to punish. Now, unfortunately, I think Fenris did board out all of the dazes on the draw here in lieu of maybe more, just value-oriented spells, saying that, because I'm not going to be able to get under my opponent necessarily, I want to be able to, just have cards that will last throughout the game. And Infect definitely can play a slower game.
No, definitely. But this is a moment that we can talk about the card that is overrated in the matchup. And that card is Force of Will. You actually just don't have the card advantage to take advantage of that card, right? Can you imagine these Force of Wills being Dazes right now and countering that Ice Fang Quaddle, which is definitely going to be relevant because you have crop rotation to go get Inkmon Nexus.
Yep. Yeah, I think so too. And I think I mean I understand why you want to play Force of Will in this deck in this position, right? It's just that like it will be able to it enables you to like push through the rest of your damage in like tight situations. Like the perfect scenario for any
Oh
player.
my. Oh.
Yeah, go for it. What's up? What happened? What did I
I was
miss?
just gonna say this was a perfect opportunity to crop rotate for Wasteland because you know your opponent's struggling on mana.
Ooh, and here we're gonna see it actually. Misty Rainforest just straight off the top here, which is going to give that third piece of mana, which is, I mean, honestly, like looking at this board state right now, I got to tell you from the infect perspective, I am not happy. Double Icefang Coatl and mana sources, it's
Yeah, I know,
certainly
but you
tough.
have the crop rotation and you have the Wasteland. So at the end of that last turn, you could have just gotten a Wasteland, got rid of the Bayou. How is your opponent supposed to cast anything?
Yeah, no,
But now you're wasting a whole Force of Will, putting yourself in a bad spot.
well, the good news is that the Force is going to pitch to the Force here. Also, keeping in mind that Sam is playing only 2 copies of Veil of Summer in the Infect deck, and we seem to have found both of them here. Maybe Steven chose not to force a will pitching the Icefang Coatl, just respecting what happened in game 2 and trying to prevent it from happening again. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is that your opponent's always going to respect days. So it, it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
For
You're
sure.
getting punished. You're getting punished for something that you took out, you know? You're always just going to find ways.
Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of interesting here. Look at the way that Steven's hand is actually lining up against Sam's. Right now, there are 3 copies of Abrupt Decay effects here, and that Underground Sea seems like a very clutch draw.
That's a really clutch draw.
Because you've been watching this whole time how Steven is trying to very carefully navigate around days, one that doesn't necessarily exist right now in the list, but, you know, finding that Underground Sea means that, you know, you can play your Plague Engineer through the days with Force of Will backup. I mean, I feel like now is the window to slam that baby, without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing around days now, so so you're clear for takeoff.
Okay. Now, unfortunately, Icefang Coatl is, you know, Death Touch is great. It's very good, you know, when you can block with creatures. But Blighted Agent is one of the premier infect threats because it is unblockable. So the Death Touch, you know, doesn't actually do too much here on this board state. And that's really interesting. Choosing
I'm
instead
so confused.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
This might lead to a huge punish, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Steven is punting this away. This is becoming a tennis match.
Yeah, just okay.
Both
okay.
players are just
Ooh.
doing it.
Oh my god.
God.
You know what's better than one cryptic command, Zan?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
2
God.
cryptic
100
commands.
million.
Yeah.
That was brutal.
Yeah, and I mean, just earlier I was thinking like, wow, these Veil of Summers are looking kind of rough here. Just like, think about it the other way around, right? All we had to do was maybe play the Plague Engineer, and then boom, that entire problem, this entire situation gets avoided, and it looks so good here. And okay, here's an Invigorate. How do you feel about this? It's pretty early, right?
Yeah, I actually dislike it a lot because you actually have one of the rare ways to beat a Plague Engineer, right? Which is
Source of Plowshares.
Swords of Invigorate plus Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah.
Or crop rotation. Crop rotation. Get Pendlehaven, and Swords to Plowshare. So you have like many ways to keep your best card in play, and you're not taking the opportunity to do that. I think that's like an opportunity missed.
Yeah, I actually think that's really sweet how crop rotation with the Plague Engineer on the stack could technically act as like a 1-turn, you know, sort of answer to the -1/-1 ability, and then the plow is there to just clean it up. That's super sweet and actually completely mitigates the impact of Plague Engineer if it all goes through, right?
Of course. It's just it's really important in this matchup to recognize that your opponent doesn't have Thoughtseize. And when your opponent doesn't have Thoughtseize, that means you've got to save your Invigorates. Right? And this is one of the spots where we're seeing Invigorate would have been so much better.
Okay.
Now this game is gonna be really grindy and really tough now. because you have a bunch of different threats that are going to cause a lot of different problems. And I was actually surprised that the Ice Fang Quaddles didn't attack the last turn. That's just like a whole turn um, of missed opportunity.
Oh,
That
wow.
was such a wonderful draw.
Wow.
But can you imagine if you had saved that Invigorate right now?
Yeah. That would have been lights out. Yeah.
Yeah, it would just be lights out. They would be at 1 infect, and then you could just swords, attack, invigorate. That's 10, trampling over for 9. You win.
Wow.
So lethal missed.
Yeah, and now, it gets even trickier, right? One Assassin's Trophy is taking care of an infect creature here, but the second Assassin's Trophy here is at the ready. This position looks really good for Steven. Assassin's Trophy, with the unique ability to actually target lands as well. So that means that the utility of Inkmoth Nexus being a land, being able to dodge Abrupt Decay gets nullified because, well, there's Assassin's Trophy, right? Straight up. So,
yeah.
And the other thing that's kind of important too is that, because both Veil of Summers have been used, because this is open deck list.
Oh my god.
The coast is clear here for this very proactive play. But this is a solid punish.
Well, in this matchup, when you're sitting at 5 infect, I don't think you can afford to be proactive.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah.
Zan?
It's not yet. It's for next turn.
Okay.
It does not work this turn.
Yeah, but that's a very, very, very good top deck in a very dire board state, right? Just to clarify, by the way, that the Plague Engineer is actually on Elf currently. So, I mean, that is definitely not going to stop the Inkmoth Nexus. But that's the downside to Plague Engineer is that, while it can't handle each of the individual threats at the same time, maybe if there's like a Cavern Harpy that comes down, it could take care of it that way. But then
that's kind of the reason why I felt like the turn where Assassin's Trophy plus Plague Engineer went down, it should have been Plague Engineer first, naming Human. The reason why that's important is because Human tags Noble plus Blighted Agent.
Okay.
So it's important to remember those small things.
For sure, yeah. And I have to wonder, with all this removal in your hand, maybe, and the Ice Fang Quaddles as well, it's such a delicate balance. And this is why playing against Infect is such a stressful endeavor, because you always have to balance, okay, well, what one of, or what two of, or what sequence of events could happen from my opponent's side that would, get rid of my Ice Fang Quaddles, that would get rid of my Assassin's Trophies or play around them through any means. And you can see here, there's the push, right? Coming at you live here. Inkmoth Nexus getting Vines of Vastwooded. There's a Berserk here. That's a big Inkmoth Nexus with Trample. All we got to do,
and that is lethal.
Cross the finish line. Yep, and that's it. That's going to be the match.
That game was just so intense. So much back and forth. Both players could have won the match at earlier stages of the game.
Yeah, and I got to say, I don't know. It's sort of interesting, right? Because I feel like we were in a position where Steven was just had it. I saw multiple copies of Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy. We had all these Ice Fang Quaddles in play here. And I mean, the Infect deck is just designed to beat it, right? That's what the Infect deck is trying to do, is trying to punch through all of the, the stock metagame answers in the form of Ice Fang Quaddle and whatnot. And that's what we saw happen here. I mean, it was a couple clutch top decks, but
I have to disagree.
Okay.
I mean, I think Legacy is a format of skill. Right. And this demonstrated no matter how bad your matchup is, if you play correctly, that you should be putting yourself in a position to win. And that's what our Allurin player failed to miss in this matchup. Trying to be proactive, missequencing, removal spells, playing around different things, right? There's a point at which to respect days, and there's a point at which there's no point to respect days. When you have the correct card in your hand, you just have to play the correct card. That game 2 should have been completely different, right? You can't afford to play around days because your 2-mana threat doesn't actually play around days anyways.
For sure. Right? Yeah. So just giving an update on the standings real quick, though. It looks like Edgar Magalhaes has won with Timur Delver, 2-0 over Mono Blue Bomberman. Looks like Lin Chalice Xuen has won 2-0 with 4-color control against Elves. And then Nathan Lippitz has won 2-0 with Azorius Combo over Death and Taxes. So, sorry, Zan, the dream's kind of dead here. D&T got paired against Omni, and it's going to be trickier too. But we're going to take a quick
Yeah.
break. We're going to set up the second round here, and we're going to see if we can get all of that going, kicking live. Remember, first place gets that grand prize of $100 and free entry into another one. So let me know who you guys think is going to be, favored to win the rest of this. We've got Team Delver, Blue Eyed Omni. We've got 4-color control, the Strifo pile, and then we also have Infect as well, rounding out our top 4. What do you think is going to win? Let me know.
I mean, rather than saying the decks, we should just say the players. And I mean, Edgar is piloting Delver, so I mean that's as finesse as it gets. So Edgar's my boy. Let's
Dang,
go, Edgar.
Edgar is certainly a sizable pilot. He does make me, when I sit across the table and I see EGAD, on Magic Online, I'm like, all right, God, gotta go gig. But Lynn Chalice is not a joke either by any metric. And I gotta say the Strifo,
no.
Yeah, Strifo pile I think is my pick to win this one. I think, given the exact snapshot of the metagame in the top 4, I think that's what's gonna take it away here. But we're gonna take a quick be right back here. We'll see you in just a couple minutes, so don't go anywhere. Literally, I think you might have time to make some popcorn, which is kind of sounding like a good option now. All right, we'll be right back. All right, and we're back here for round 2. I told you barely had enough time to make your popcorn here. The round's going to get set up here, but what we're doing right now as we set up for the round is I want to talk a little bit about the deck list. So here are the pairings for the top 4. We have the match that we were talking about, Zay. You put your money on Edgar. I put my money on Xuen. This is what we're going to see right now in our top 4 here. It's going to be a great match with 2 great players here. Let's take a look at the first deck. And this one, I'm going to let you take this one, Zan, because it's your boy Edgar. What are we looking at?
I mean, we're looking at the new and improved Rug Delver. So the main changes are the young Peasies. They allow you to play around the rest in pieces that have been coming in against this deck post board, which generally shut off the Tarmogoyfs, the Dreadhorde Arcanist, and cause the Hooting Mandrill some problem. The other big change is the basic island, which which is definitely a problem because it makes Wasteland less good against you, as well as other things that you might be playing, like base back to basics and stuff like that. So I mean, this list is pretty stock. Other than that, I mean, you got your six force of will slash negations, and then in the post board, the biggest addition that I'm seeing is the Clotuses. Um, I've played one in the past, but Edgar has gone up to two, which I love. We see the Blazing Volleys and the Ancient Grudge, which is a huge problem for Death and Taxes. There's also a Null Rod, so that's all super scary. But the card that we have to mention is the Court of is it Cunning or Counting? It's the mill.
Very sinister.
The
Yes,
mill.
cunning, cunning, cunning.
It's Cunning. Okay, yeah. It's the new way to win the game with Delver. It's basically 3 mana. You become the monarch, and if you're the monarch, your opponent has to mill 10 every single turn. If not, it's 3. It's not your opponent. You can also mill yourself. So if you were playing Uro or you need Hooting Mandrills, like delve cards for Hooting Mandrills or cards for Dreadhorde Arcanist, you can mill yourself. So the deck looks pretty stock. Absolutely loving it.
From the other side of the table, we've got the legendary Stryfo Pile, which is a Dak Fade-In based control deck, leveraging a lot of interesting one-ofs, teched out choices. This is definitely like a customized, like worn, leathered, whatever you want to adjective. This deck is a passion project, and I'm pretty interested to see how it's going to line up here against Edgar. This Dak Fade-In alongside a lot of cards like Uro, like Punishing Fire. These cards are going to be pretty powerful in generating card advantage, but you've also got a couple interesting cards like Assassin's Trophy to, just like handle any sort of threat that's possibly out there. Astrolabe, Cling to Dust, these are all also kind of interesting. And then we're going to round it out with a slew of, counter magic in the form of like Force of Will and Force of Negation, right? So essentially, this is your sort of like 4-color, no white control deck that has good answers, good threats, and then a lot of card draw. So I mean, I'm kind of interested to see how it goes out here. I know that Uro for a fact is going to be one of the key cards in game one here. Like you mentioned, Court of Cunning is going to be very powerful, but I got to tell you, there's one thing that does make Court of Cunning a lot less powerful, and that's your boy, the Sky Noodle Yorion. And Zan, I know you don't like this card, but certainly against Court of Cunning, I think having 80 cards in your deck is a pretty huge deal here. So I'm kind of curious to see how this is going to play out. It looks like the players are also getting ready to start. So we're going to peep this and see what's going on here as we join game two. These are some solid opening hands.
Yeah. Talk about solid. We got so much interaction on both sides. And both players got some solid threats. The namesake of the deck, the namesake of the Stryfo Pile, Dak Fade-In, the glue that holds the whole deck together. And then you got Grove plus Punishing Fire ready to go. God, love this deck.
Yeah. One thing that's notably missing from Edgar's hand, I think, is a turn 1 or 2 threat. Hooting Mandrills does first require green mana, but then also requires a little bit of, like cards to delve away here. So I'd be really excited to see this Ponder find something like a Dreadhorde Arcanist that we can deploy on turn 2, or maybe double Delver of Secrets, which we're going to see come into play now. This is pretty exciting. From the other side, like you mentioned, right? This is pretty good. We got removal in the form of Punishing Fire, and we can buy it back with Grove of the Burn Willows, Force of Will to protect ourselves from any sort of weird, super aggressive draw, or days. Make sure that our spells resolve at the cost of a card. Or
oh my,
yeah. Or we even have these Icewind Coddles, which can come down. Now this is interesting. Wow, take a look at that.
Wow, I love that play because you kind of want to bait out your opponent's force, and you get a free opportunity to play around days. So the longer the game goes, the more likely you are to win. So I love that force, honestly.
Yeah. One thing that I think is an interesting dynamic about the Stryfo Pile deck is that it isn't really heavy on like, sweepers like, Dead of Winter or Terminus or Supreme Verdict or even like Toxic Deluge, right? In your 80 card deck, you maybe have like 2 sweepers or 3 sweepers at max, which means that you really do kind of struggle sometimes to handle boards that go really wide. And that's why I really like this Force of Will, because for 0 mana, you're getting rid of a lot of aggression here. And looks like Delver of Secrets is actually going to flip to something that I didn't get to see, but no worries. Punishing Fire is going to take it down in the upkeep here before the lightning bolt gets drawn. And now suddenly, like, the aggression, we saw double Delver and it's just gone.
Yeah, I mean, that was honestly a really, really solid timing on the Punishing Fire. Like, that was like A-class timing. Couldn't be better. You got to see the card. You got to play around Force of Negation. The only thing you're not playing around is Daze, but you don't mind that because you have the Grove already lined up in your hand. So the masterclass, a masterclass turn by Lynn Chalice.
Yep. So this is kind of interesting here, though. So finally, the Hooting Mandrill is going to come into play here. Ice Fang Coatl doesn't have Death Touch and is not even close to getting Death Touch. There's only one snow-covered permanent in play. Edgar's going to pick up a couple copies of Lightning Bolt and Chain Lightning, which means that, the Ice Fang Coatl is not going to do a great job at blocking, assuming that it could even get Death Touch. But, I mean, yeah, the Hooting Mandrills is actually maybe one of the more premier threats in the later phases of this game, I think, just because, you don't have Swords to Plowshares in this list, but you got the other one right there, and that's an Assassin's Trophy.
I've never even seen that art. What is that?
It's sweet artwork, I'll tell you that much. I think it's one of the Secret Lair editions that
doesn't even look like a Magic card.
It looks like a movie poster, right? That's yeah. So sweet.
I love it.
Now this is interesting here. Check this out, right? We have the Assassin's Trophy, but what we don't have right now actually is mana to cast it. We are short on black mana here, and that makes me wonder, if you're in Xuan's position, what are you going to do here? It looks like he's just going to pass the turn. Do you agree with that?
I can only assume that maybe there's an Ice Fang Coatl plus Punishing Fire turn trying to come down.
Okay.
But that doesn't seem to make sense in my head, because that there was a Lightning Bolt in your opponent's hand that may or may not have been brainstormed away. So I think I might have opted to play Ice Fang Coatl on the main phase, try to hit that black source. If I don't hit that black source, then I could still potentially hit like another way to deal with their creature, and they would have drawn the polluted delta, which would have enabled. No, it actually wouldn't have enabled it because you need green and black. So I'm surprised the double block was not made.
Well, they don't have Death Touch quite yet, so
yeah. I was thinking double
to
block
combine with the Punishing Fire. Okay, yeah.
And then Punishing Fire. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I could say to this is that did you know, Zan, that Dak Faden can actually discard Punishing Fire to the graveyard, and then you can use Grove of the Burn Willow to buy back the Dak Faden, to buy back the Punishing Fire. I've messed up my copy pasta. Okay, anyways. Embarrassing moment later.
I totally understand that, but in a position like this, you're just getting beat down, right? You're only one, like, you get to deal with one of their ways. It's just like one of those moments where you just need to get that Hooting Mandrills off the board. So you just want to throw stuff against the wall, and whatever sticks. Yeah. So I think I would have definitely opted to make that play, because the Hooting Mandrills, I mean, the Ice Fang Coatls are really far away, and even if they do end up getting Death Touch, by that point, it may be too late. That trample damage might be more relevant,
right,
than the Death Touch.
I always, when I'm playing against Delver, like, you sort of just have to use the clues of the game to sort of eliminate and figure out what they have in their hand, right? So at this point, Edgar has stopped casting cantrips, right? So what I would guess from that maybe is that that Edgar might have some number of lightning bolts, might have some number of counter spells, Or, I mean, if you have threats, I get the feeling that you just deploy them because you're not really worried about sweepers and you want to overwhelm your opponent on the sport state. So I would maybe say that my opponent doesn't have threats on the sport state. Maybe that's what Xuen is doing right now here, sort of eliminating or like getting a really good grasp of what might be in Edgar's hand and is using like time to sort of figure that out. Now, obviously, the life total is going to be one metric that like determine how much or how little you can care about it. But in this board state, like, you know, you can't take any more damage from these from this Hooting Mandrill. So you have to determine right now is how, like, what do I want to do now? Do I want to trophy perhaps? Do I want to, you know, like double block and then punishing fire? Or what's my game here, right? And it looks like Xuen's going to actually go ahead and do this. It's just Assassin's Trophy, the Hooting Mandrills.
Yep. And then it's going to be a force battle.
Yep. Force on force here. Both cards getting hard cast. And look at that discipline, Zan.
Yep.
That is insane here.
That is the right play for sure. Because if this doesn't work, then you have the play of block, punishing fire, bring back punishing fire. We're ahead in this game.
For sure. And this is also sort of what I was alluding to earlier.
What a payoff. Like, by not hard casting that force of negation, you played around days, as well as you got to cash in this punishing fire.
Absolutely. Delver of Secrets is not very good against punishing fire, I'll tell you that much. Okay.
Oh my. Yeah.
So here comes Uro. Uro's going to the graveyard here, going to stabilize the life total a little bit. Double Ice Fin Coatl might now turn to attack here. The thing that excited me most about that Force Negation play too was that, you know, maybe Xuen was like, you know, sniffing out that there was a dead daze in Edgar's hand, and he chose to play around that, which is, you know, certainly very solid here. Wow. Okay.
Oh wow.
This ponder chose not to shuffle, by the way, which means we are intentionally choosing to draw the lightning bolt, which means maybe the ponder has. Oh man,
there must be another bolt,
and that's gonna look so bad. I mean, I get it. The wasteland can cut them off buying back Uro, but this other Uro, the second copy of Uro, is gonna put Lin Chalice at 15 life, and you need a lot of bolts to deal that much damage.
Yeah, I mean, the plan was clear, right? Get them off the second green. If they don't have another Uro, they die. And now the other bolt on top is being shuffled away.
Oh my goodness!
Is found.
Yeah, you could actually technically get away with murder here if you're in Edgar's position. Unfortunately, Xuen has it all here. Fatal Push, double punishing fire. This Dreadhorde Architect is not going to get to untap for sure.
Yeah, there's no way.
And Dreadhorde Arcanist is just like one of those cards, man. It just feels so powerful that, like, I don't know. It definitely revolutionized the landscape of the Legacy format in the past year, just coming down on turn 2 and just taking over games. You know, before I used to think that Jason the Mind Sculptor was really good, and now I sort of just realized that, no, Dreadhorde Arcanist is, like, way stronger.
Yeah, I mean, anything you do in a game, you can just do it twice.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting here, the upkeep Fatal Push. I wonder if that was almost tempting Edgar to just tap out for a Force of Will. Maybe Xuen wanted that time walk ability there, but instead, nope, Dreadhorde just dies, and I think Xuen has safely stabilized here at... Okay, well, I say that, and, you know, maybe it's not true. We draw another copy of Lightning
It's
Bolt.
actually just not true. I think this is a great opportunity to draw the fourth bolt. If a fourth bolt is drawn, that is lethal.
That would be kind of crazy, no lie.
I mean, we're not that far away from it, right? At the end of turn, I'm pretty positive Edgar's going to go for the bolts.
Yeah, you might just have to here, right? You don't have any creatures, so
you don't have any choice.
Yeah, and
what's happening?
Xuen comfortably going to take 3 points of damage here, but now the Uro is just going to come into play, and your lightning bolt plan just not going to work against that, or at least I thought it was.
Oh my. Oh my.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. So Dak Vaden on the stack, Edgar choosing not to Force of Negation it for the 3-mana hardcast mode. It's going to dump both of these punishing fires.
I mean, you got to protect your bolts. That's the whole game plan.
Yeah, that's actually totally reasonable here. But at this point, like, Xuen has sculpted double Force of Will and has the Ice Fangs in play to attack. Uro coming back in the graveyard in a turn. Oh, look at this. A fight's being fought.
Yep, and Edgar is putting himself in the best position to try and win.
There's zero hesitation about this game plan, too, which I think is so exciting. Well, okay, never mind. You polluted Delta off the top, not exactly it. This is one of those positions where...
But even if he did draw it, I mean, there was a second Force, so it wouldn't have made it through. But it would have been exciting for sure.
Absolutely. And now I gotta wonder, like, maybe now it's time for Uro to come back and just, do Uro things in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this match is certainly over now.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you're in Edgar's shoes, you just play to your outs, right? One maybe clutch brainstorm, and you'll be able to convert that into more than... Like, if you find there might be like more copies of Chain Lightning in Edgar's deck, the 4th Lightning Bolt exactly, or if you're like super lucky, you get Dreadhorde Arcanist and then, Xuen's finger slips. Nope, nothing like that. All right, cool. So, taking a look at sideboarding, Zan, this is Edgar's deck. What are the interesting cards in this matchup? What would you bring in? What would you cut?
I mean, of course, the Pyroblast, the Red Blast, those are all really important. And then I think you still bring in the Chord of Cunning. I mean, it's like a really tough decision because your opponent does have Ice Fang Quaddles that can connect, and you can lose being the Monarch. So that's definitely a problem. You're definitely bringing in the Bajuka Bog, and the Clothuses are also really important. So Clothus, Bajuka Bog, most important cards, and then you got your Blast. So those are the cards I'm thinking. Crop rotation should also be coming in, because a lot of different things need to be dealt with Bajuka Bog plus crop rotation.
Yep, for sure here. I think crop rotation will be pretty critical at, like, imagine if you crop rotate for a Caracas, you could bounce one of those scary Uros instead of having to use a Pyroblast on it. And then after that, you're, in position to maybe like use the rest of your board to just push through the last points of damage. I agree with basically almost everything you're saying here. And in terms of cards to cut, is there anything that you don't like in the main deck?
This is one of the spots where you wish that your young Pyromancers were actually Tarmogoyfs.
Okay, true. Yeah, just a heads up, Edgar giving me the sneak peek here is cutting 2 copies of Lightning Bolt, 2 copies of Chain Lightning, and all copies of Force of Will for the cards that you're mentioning. So, or most copies, three copies of Force of Will, actually. So, kind of cool.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, like, Force of Will is just replaced by a 1-mana counterspell.
Yeah. And on the other side of the board here, I kind of hope to see the Plague Engineers come in from Xuen's side. I love the Pyroblast as a way to mitigate like early aggression in the form of Delver Secrets, resilient aggression in the form of Oko. That's kind of interesting that there's a copy of Crop Rotation in Xuen's sideboard as well. Would not bring that in this matchup. And then I think the most important card in my mind is certainly Carpet of Flowers. That is a card that I'm absolutely in love with in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Carpet of Flowers has just demonstrated time and time again how critical it is in the blue matchups. When you're behind on mana, it just swings it. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. It's such a powerful effect, and blue decks are certainly popular in this format.
Yeah. And players are now ready here. Sideboarding is complete. This draw from Edgar, who is going to be on the play for Game 2, looks pretty nutty. Double Delver, Arcanist, and interactive spells. Xuen's hand on the other side, not feeling it. Yeah. A much better 6, though.
Wow, that's much better. Like, any hand that can get you a basic and then play a bunch of Astrolabes feels incredible. It feels like you're playing a different deck. Decks that play Astrolabe when they have Astrolabe and when they don't have Astrolabe, world of difference.
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, it's kind of to the point where, like, when I don't draw Astrolabe, I can't even get upset because then you just look at your mana base and you're just like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually this greedy, knowing that one single, like, a cheaper prophetic prism is actually just enabling all of this. It's certainly something
That's
else.
exactly what I was thinking. Prophetic Prism. Who knew that Prophetic Prism that costs 1 is actually just one of the most broken cards ever printed?
Right? And like sometimes I've been in conversations where people joke about, oh yeah, what if Jason the Mind Sculptor costs 3 mana? And like after seeing this with Astrolabe versus like Prophetic Prism, no. The door shut on any sort of talks like that. You're banned.
Yeah.
Not allowed.
Yeah, I mean, it happens so often. Like, just think about it. Peak, unplayable. Gitaxian Probe,
The nuts. Yeah.
so nutty.
Yeah. But speaking of nutty here, we're going to look at the curve. We see turn 1 Delver. It's going to flip to a Force of Negation. That's public information. Dreadhorde Arcanist now in play with blue card to pitch in the form of a second Delver of Secrets here. And Xuen has not yet found a second land, a second basic land, which means that the Wasteland in play is going to heavily incentivize Xuen maybe not to play the Grove of the Burned Willows. If you're in Xuen's position, do you go for the Astrolabe this turn? Do you go for the Ponder? Or do you just dump out the Grove of the Burned Willows?
I mean, I think you probably start the turn off by bolting, and then the next play is either Astrolabe or Ponder. That would have been my thought.
Okay, and take a look at this. Xuen says, I'm going to play around everything as much as I can. Lightning Bolt your Dreadhorde Arcanist on your upkeep. Give up the ability to develop my mana base, which is, we might see a little bit of tension here because that Wasteland is hungry to go to the graveyard and take down another duel with it. I mean,
I'm actually cool with this because you have the Cling. You can actually use the Cling as just a cantrip. It's basically the same as playing Astrolabe that last turn. So, yeah, and you find a better position to cast the bolt, right? Play around Force of Negation for as long as you possibly can.
Yeah, for sure. Before it gets into the hard cast position here, we saw Force of Negation in game 1 in Edgar's hand, and okay, yeah, there it is. Cling gonna target the Scalding Tarn. Also, Cling is kind of multimodal in this situation where it can also target Dreadhorde Arcanist if you needed to gain some life in a pinch. But okay, wow. There it is.
Well played.
That is a clutch Force of Will that we just picked up off the top.
Yeah, huge. Can't stress enough how big that draw was.
And I mean, when you have this Punishing Fire also in your hand, ready to take care of the Delver of Secrets, like I think you're absolutely ecstatic to.
Yeah, not gonna lie, this Ponder was also a really clutch draw.
Yeah,
that's also a clutch find.
Yeah. I think we see a copy of a Fetch Land upcoming, and then a Drown on the lock on top of Xuen's deck. So,
and we have a game here.
We do. Now, in terms of durability, right? Once this Delver of Secret goes, you might be thinking to yourself that, okay, Edgar's just out of gas here, and it's going to be really hard to cross the finish line. But there's a copy of Lightning Bolt that's going to deal a third of, Lynn Chalice's life total. And Clothis is a really clutch pickup here as well.
Yeah, this is really unfortunate. But if a Clothis is able to come down, it's really going to swing this game.
Yeah. Edgar desperately needs to find a copy of Brainstorm here, or just a green mana source of any variety, to be totally honest, before something like Uro gets into play.
This is a pretty good opportunity to put Yorion in hand, but you're going to kind of leave yourself open for a moment. But I'm pretty positive that's what I would be thinking about if I was in Stryfo's
position. Yeah, for sure here. And
position,
the other option you could do, I actually, that is one consideration. I will make an argument for just passing the turn here. Hold up your Assassin's Trophy, hold up your Drown in the lock, and should nothing else happen, you can always buy back that Cling to Dust to draw an extra card.
Yeah, actually, I think I love that a lot more.
Wow.
Oh my. I'm not sure if I like this play.
Me neither. So this Assassin's
Trophy,
that
there's an island in your opponent's deck.
Right? Yeah, this is so aggressive. Maybe Xuen's trying to take off Volcanic Island is
I would just fire off a bolt now.
Fire off a bolt, then maybe daze the Assassin's Trophy and then replay the Volcanic Island? That doesn't sound too bad at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I quite like that actually. This seems like an overstep, maybe a little bit too aggressive here, given that Daze could just counter this for free. But I definitely understand why Xuan's making this play. Right, this is trying to either cut you off red that will cast a red blast or lightning bolt or whatever, or cut you off blue. Now I have to imagine blue mana is going to be a much more instrumental in this board state. So, it's defensible. Edgar's just got a solid, counterplay to it.
Yeah,
in this
I just
position.
like this lightning bolt Daze play. I think it's just correct. You get to save your Valk. You get to fire off a lightning bolt basically for free.
And it looks pretty good here. I mean, this is an interesting question, which is if you're in Xuan's position, do you even like Drought in the Lock?
I mean,
the
that
lightning
means
bolt?
you're committing to this crazy plan, which I think is a bad plan to begin with.
Okay. Yeah, but I mean, like, you never know, right? Like, if you have a game plan, sometimes you just got to see it through. And then at the end of the day, you could be like, okay, yeah, that was a really bad idea. But you don't want to, like, half-ass it. You know what I'm saying? So, that being said, that's so interesting.
Yeah, not playing Delver there, I think, is 100% correct.
Okay. The 100%er is out there. And that's also terrifying, too. This is the green mana that, we've been missing this whole time. Drawn to the Luck still in Xuan's hand, so the Colossus can actually get countered here if Edgar chooses to play the Colossus. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the right play. I don't think you play around Drown on the Lock.
Yeah, but this is definitely like one of the critical turning points of the game. I think that this Colossus not resolving is big.
Wow. Well, Clothis not resolving is big, but what's even bigger was that Brainstorm draw. That was a pretty insane draw.
Clutch for sure. Unfortunately, though, there's no way to shuffle the deck here, but these cards are not bad by any means.
These cards are nutty.
Yeah.
These cards are nutty. You can go for the Assassin's Trophy play again if you really want to.
If you really want to commit to that plan, yeah, for sure. It looks like what we might see here instead is just an end step cling to dust here, get through that Brainstorm block a little bit faster. Delver of Secrets is going to come down now, though, and yeah, I mean, there's a plan here.
Yep, there's a solid plan, and I like it. Every step that Edgar has taken so far, it's been part of a plan, and that's what I approve of. It's sometimes easier to get lost in the snow piles. I felt like for a moment there, we fired off an Assassin's Trophy that we shouldn't have, but I mean, we're still in a good position.
For sure. Okay, so I mean, I'm gonna be totally honest. This Preordain was also a really fire top deck for Edgar because it just seems like Edgar's draws have not really like lined up in a meaningful way. And this Preordain might be able to smooth out the next few turns. Xuan, on the other hand, has been picking up banger after banger after banger, Pyroblast into Trophy, Cling to Dust just to get the card volume in.
Clutch.
Oh, and
I
look at
actually
that.
like the life gain.
Yeah.
The life gain mode was really, really, really good.
Okay, here's the Brainstorm that we knew about.
Yeah.
Still have the secret layer death metal, secret layer metal, somewhere, some one of those two. Assassin's. I gotta say that art it speaks to me, just because it's so radically different. Oh wow. Okay, look at this. This is an interesting timing for the Pyroblast. So this is.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Really? Why?
Well, actually, I do like it because now you've accepted. I'm cool with losing it now.
Yeah.
Like losing to a force.
Yeah, I think I'm also happy with this because now that you can't play around force negation on your opponent's turn since they can just hardcast it, you might as well try to incentivize them to like go down a card while also casting it. Another Preordain is a pretty good top deck here. It looks like there's a Daze somewhere in this Preordain. We'll figure out what Edgar chooses to do with it. But, Pyroblast is still there just to keep our shields up if we need to. And I think this game is still close.
Pretty solid. Yeah. A Daze is pretty solid. You can go ahead and Wasteland the Caracas, and then you're in a pretty okay spot. You have pretty much everything taken care of.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, there's an Assassin's Trophy that we knew about. Okay, so Yorion now uncastable. Young Pyromancer!
Mancer is a great draw.
That is solid.
Absolutely fantastic.
Well, I mean, I get really hyped up about this, but I know there's a removal spell in Xuan's hand, so this Pyromancer probably not going to see the light of day.
Yeah, but it still ends up being a ramp, which Edgar can certainly use the mana. So regardless, it ends up being fantastic.
Yeah, and Pyromancer are a little bit different than something like Delver of Secrets, because I think Pyromancer is a must-answer card. You do not have the luxury of waiting, to maybe like find a better answer for the Pyromancer, because it just goes wide really quickly. And okay, there's a Bird Serpent mana, and that's some.
Wow, that is.
It's time.
Oh my God, it's court.
It's time. It's time. I am so interested to see how this card will perform in this matchup. Brainstorm has to
Will
hit.
this trigger a brainstorm in response? Does it?
It really just might. It's so hard to say. I mean, if I was in Xuan's position anyways, I'd probably want to brainstorm just because I want to find that 6th land to play my Yorion through something like
Oh my God. This game is getting more and more interesting.
I really can't tell. Wait, this is
Ice Vein Quaddle is gonna go into play.
that's
gonna swing the thing back into
yeah. This is actually just the worst timeline for Edgar here. That brainstorm finding a clutch Ice Vein Quaddle is just
not fair.
Extremely nasty, yeah. And this is
game
good
has been this great sequencing on both players' parts.
This is good timing. Yeah, you're right. Putting it in response to the draw trigger means that you can.
And now you can pretty safely put this Yorion down. The only thing you're not playing around is
Force of Will.
Force of Will. And I think you're cool with that.
But you're drawing so many cards here off the Sky Noodle that like you just have to take the risk here, right?
Yeah, I mean, this was just played perfectly. Perfectly. Like to the T. Like so well played.
Mm-hmm. That being said, I think there are still potential outs here for Edgar, but it's
looking a lot worse.
Grim. Yeah. Grim. None of these threats that Edgar ever has drawn have just stuck. They've all died. It's too much. It's just too much.
It's been really close. He's been pretty much 1 mana off at that early stage of the game the entire time.
Yeah. Preordain is going to find a copy of Dreadhorde Arcanist. That's pretty good here. I mean, the Ice Fang does have...
Oh, man.
Okay.
Push being drawn is also just...
It's a lot, right? It's not good at all.
Yeah.
You also have Carpet of Flowers, the one of that we were talking about. It's probably lost its the brunt of its effect here, given that we're already on turn 12 here and the mana bases have been developed and established. But
I don't think it actually lost that much because you have so many spells that you can cast right now. Just think about it. That 4 mana just makes at least allows you to cast a Cling a turn.
Okay.
Free.
That's a really good point. Yeah. That's if that can convert into a single card that we want. Looks like we're going to use that mana to Fatal Push the Dreadhorde Arcanist. If I'm in Edgar's shoes, I feel like I'm priced into Force of negating the Fatal Push. Ooh, okay. Yeah, and there it is. And I wonder if Xuan maybe was supposed to like play the Dak Faden first to see if we could like convert these dead fetch lands into something a little bit more interesting.
I think he just assumes that he's going to be able to find stuff from what he has.
Makes sense. Okay. Okay, so Cephalid Coliseum is a really interesting one, targeting Lynn Chalice there to cycle through. We have the requisite threshold that we need to activate it. Now Dak Faden coming down. We literally saw 5 lands in hand at one point, and with all of this selection, we're just like turboing through it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of turbo, but I mean, still left with nothing.
Now, this is kind of interesting because I think Edgar might actually have a shot here if Lynn misplays.
Definitely.
And
I mean, this is going to be a fetch. is life gonna be gained or is a card gonna be drawn?
Okay. I have to imagine Lin demonstrated that, they understand the value of gaining life in this matchup. And yep, here it happens here. Cling to Death's going to gain some more life, which does get you out of a lot of tricky circumstances here. Okay.
And I think Edgar's back in this game. Let's go. Edgar's back in the game.
That's true. Dreadhorde Arcanist is going to buy back the Red Blast, or the Bolt, killing the Ice Fang Quaddle. You regain the Monarchy, and now there are no creatures in.
Ponder. Ponder was drawn. That's huge.
This game is so back and forth close. I thought it was over.
It's ridiculous. Well, this is what happens when both players are playing at such freaking high levels. Anything is possible.
This is great. I love Legacy for this exact reason. Ponder going to shuffle there. Dreadhorde, Wasteland, not really what the game is about at this position, which I definitely understand. Here...
This is probably going to be a Red Blast? No, I think it's a Bolt.
It's tricky. Red Blast handles a potential Uro. Bolt, maybe you can use to end the game at a later time. But you got the Monarchy back here. Lin drew maybe 3 or 4 cards off the Monarchy token there, but now I think it's solidly in Edgar's control for at least a turn or two, which is exactly where you want to be. Brainstorm being found off the Monarch token, but that gets met with an Uro top deck.
Oh my god, this is just brutal. But I mean, I think it's still in Stryfo's hands because of the Cling. Right?
Okay.
The Cling makes things so much more difficult. Even if the Uro is not drawn here, the Cling is just gonna eat the matchup alive.
Okay, yeah. Very, very solid point there. Oh, man. That is certainly...
Cling is such a powerful effect. Honestly, you should be thinking about putting that in your 4-color pile.
You really think so? I've tried it before. I've never really been a fan. I think it's a lot better in this deck because you have cards like Dak Faden to accelerate it. But this is a very convincing argument for it. I definitely agree. Super flexible card.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, it looks so good, and it pairs really well with Carpet of Flowers.
Yeah.
And it's good against all of the bad matchups, right? All of the bad matchups for the Snowco deck are graveyard synergistic decks.
You know the most exciting thing about this, Zan, is that we're actually still only in game 2, and I gotta tell you, this match has been so much fun that I really want Edgar to win so we can get into game 3.
And then time's gonna run out.
I just want to see. I want to see the real red zone show up today. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my god! And there it is. There's the red zone that we were talking about. It's a Pyroblast.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, from this position, Edgar's gonna get a little bit rewarded here for bolting the Ice Fang, keeping that red blast, saying that hey, Schwen has yet to find a single copy of this Uro, so he's likely to find it soon. I need to have something in the tank to have just to make sure that the Uro doesn't take over the game here. And that's something I hadn't realized. Court of Cunning now is going to mill 10 cards from Lynn Chalice's deck. Maybe you don't even
26.
Yeah, maybe you don't even care.
It's kind of still in a weird spot because this Pyroblast is not going to resolve. Because of Cling.
Oh, that's a really good point. Cling is a super solid counterspell to the Dreadhorde Arcanist. Wow.
Yeah. It's not looking good.
And there's murder in the streets here. Pyroblast going to take care of Preordain, but Brainstorm coming out next. Okay.
Oh my god. These are
certainly draws, right? Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately not good enough. Oh, but then this means that you can't deploy the if you choose to Cling here, you can't deploy the Ice Fang Quaddle. So there's certainly a double bind here where you can pick one or the other, but not both. Which means that if the Cling comes down, then Edgar just puts Delver of Secrets and Dreadhorde Arcanist, and then suddenly the name of the game doesn't become maybe dealing damage, but simply milling out the Yorion player ? That's something.
Yeah, I mean this is some really tough decisions because. I mean, Ice Fang kind of needed to hit the battlefield in order to swing the Monarch back, and it's now being used for something else completely.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Uro gonna block the 1-3 pretty happily here. But it's not yet over. Grove of the Burn Willows actually is finally turned on. Punishing Fire is going to be found here off the Court of Cunning Mill. I think there was already one in the graveyard, so that means that this Delver of Secrets actually isn't going to be able to do too much damage here. Dak Faden might be able to pick up another removal spell, and then suddenly the tables might turn again, where the Monarchy goes back over to Lynn Chalice here.
But if it doesn't go back, then Edgar's just got to hold on for like one more turn.
Yeah, for sure. Scalding Tarn going to fetch here. No lands, I guess, left in the deck?
Time is becoming an issue.
Okay. Dak Faden going to tick up, drawing Brainstorm and Astrolabe, discarding an Uro, discarding maybe the Misty Rainforest. I mean, I didn't see the Scalding Tarn get anything, so we just need to find one removal spell here to take care of. Oh! And that's it.
That's it.
That helps so much. I genuinely don't know if Edgar has a way out of this now.
Yeah, I would say it's over now.
Okay. It was close for just a brief second here, right? The Dreadhorde Arcanist maybe could have blocked the Uro. Maybe you can pick up something.
I mean, Kling has really caused all sorts of problems in this matchup.
Mm-hmm.
If there was another Pyroblast found, or Red Elemental Blast found that last turn from all those from the Brainstorm, then I think we would have a different game. But unfortunately, it was not found.
Yeah, and I mean, there was a shot. There was a chance. The light in my eyes is now probably dimmed out.
Yep, unfortunate.
Yeah,
but well played from both sides.
Day's certainly not the draw.
Really enjoyed.
I actually wonder. Lynn Chalice Lynn does seem kind of savage. Shoen might just force a will this. I'd love to see it just as a hard read, the soul read. Oh, never mind. It's already on the stack. Okay, never mind. Finding Mandrills, Pyroblast, and a tropical island, which I think you're just obligated to shuffle. But Edgar's going to keep it. Okay. So I don't necessarily know if this is a winning recipe, but I guess the trample damage with the Pyroblast means that you're going to get to at least get the Monarchy back, and maybe that's what Edgar's game plan is here. Now, unfortunately, Edgar knows about the double Punishing Fire, which means that the Hooting Mandrills is certainly not going to stick around here. And there's also
I don't even know what the ultimate does. What does it do?
It's Mr. Steal Your Mandrills. It's Mr. Steal Your Mandrills, yeah.
Wow.
And it's gonna
exciting.
Yeah, Punishing Fire, Dak Faden, emblems, ultimating, all that cool sort of stuff brought to you by the Strifo pile. Shuen gonna move on to the finals. 2-0 over Edgar Magalhaes. I'm gonna rub it in your face for now. I was right. What do you want me to But not to say that Edgar didn't play well.
Edgar played phenomenally.
I think so.
There was not a single time I could look at a play that he made and say, "What are you doing?" Every time I was just like, "All right, I'm in awe. You're just playing so well." So continue. But both sides really impressed me. I really like the way Strifo played it as well. I mean, that deck certainly came together in a way that made it impossible for Edgar to win that one.
Yep, absolutely. And I think Dreadhorde Arcanist, I absolutely despise that card. I think it's a phenomenally busted, broken, bonkers, whatever word you want to use to describe it. But Cling to Dust just made that card look so bad. Cling to Dust literally gained 9 life here, which I think is what determined. Yeah, exactly. That's what determined the pace of this match. This everything about this one, right? So,
yep.
Very well played. Good deck building decisions, good sideboarding decisions, good play all in all. We're going to get the final set up here, and it looks like on the other side of the bracket, now Shuen on Strifo pile is going to be playing. Who do you think won? Do you think Bant Infect at the hands of Fenris Cloud Sam Dan's won, or do you think Nathan Lippitz took it with the Azorius combo deck that he played not just this time, but also in one of the prior Octagons as well?
I mean, on paper, Bant is supposed to be favored.
Okay.
But, I mean, if there's a version of, like, Show and Tell Omniscience that should be good against Infect, it should be the blue-white version, because Swords of Plowshare is better than bolt type effects.
So surely. And Teferi also going to be insane in that matchup. And I'm going to guess that those are some of the cards that got Nathan that victory. So the finals is going to be your control deck against your combo deck. I'm excited to see what's going to happen here. Now, you said that, Azorius combo, the blue-white Omnitel list might be good against Infect. How do you think it's going to pair up against this 4-color control deck?
Hmm. I think it pairs fairly well.
Okay.
I think I think I like the matchup for blue white. But I mean, both players were playing phenomenally, so it could be a back and forth. It depends on how many Assassin's trophies there are, right?
Yep, for sure.
I think, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of cool combinations of ways you can get rid of Omniscience, like putting Uro into play at the same time with the trigger on the stack, trophying it so you don't see anything, the Omniscience actually being used. So I'm excited to watch this match.
Yep, it'll be close. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this with a little bit more analysis on the matchup. We'll take a look at the decks as well. Stay tuned. I know you already finished your popcorn, so go get another bag. We'll be right back. See you in just a sec. Oh, shoot.
And we're back.
Yeah. Sorry, I actually clicked the wrong button in OBS, and now the volume might just be super loud. So I'm sorry if you are getting ear blasted right now. But yes, Zan nailed it. Honestly, let's just try it again. Let's try it again. Right? Start from the top. Roll from the top. You got this, Zan. You got this.
All right, and we're back.
Let's go.
So we're ready for the finals. Yeah, I'm super excited. From the chat, I've been seeing that blue white is favored.
Okay.
But this is Legacy. Anything can happen. I mean, uh, uh, I honestly believe that the better player wins.
You know, it's interesting that you say that because I feel like you've been harping on that for a while, but I feel like in a format like Legacy, that actually is way truer than it is than you might think. It's not just like the better player, but I also think like the more nuanced player who knows their deck in and out. I think that is also something that is just something like in general that you get rewarded very heavily for in Legacy when you know what makes your deck good, what makes your deck good in each matchup, and then like down to the nitty gritty details when you say, okay, I identified this card as good, but then you can even take it down a level further and say like this card in this situation at this time. Magic is just beautiful. I love Legacy for this exact reason. That being said, let's take a look at the list. Now we did take a look at Xuan's list, but I want to take a look at the list on the other side of the table, which is thanks to our cardboard.live deck tech, blue-white Omnitel at the hands of Nathan Lippitz. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty positive this is a Lippitz creation. I've certainly played against him online, and it's always been really challenging. I mean, this deck list is so clean, so like so perfect. Look at it, just like four forces, four cunning wishes, four impulses, four brainstorms, four omniscience. I absolutely love how this deck has been constructed, and I mean the biggest things for playing white are playing Teferi and also being able to play the Swords of Plowshares in the side. I love the Seagate restorations. They pair super well with Omniscience, allowing you to fill up your hand and just basically go through your entire deck and be able to find the combo once you put Omniscience on the board. So yeah, I mean, l- like I think this deck is really good. And
Yeah,
super like I like the meddling mages on the side too.
I actually think this is a really powerful like iteration of just the Omnitel list too. But I think Seagate Restoration just being multimodal in the form of a payoff for Omniscience, and then also just tapping for mana if you needed to is super smooth. That I think is what makes this deck even more consistent than previous iterations. And the players look like they're going to get into the game here. Let's just dive in and see what's going on here. So, looking at the hands here, it looks like Xuan's got Force of Will, which is good in the matchup, but too many lands. On the other hand, Nathan has multiple copies of Force of Will, Payoff and Omniscience, and then even the Show and Tell as well, but only one mana source. So talk to me, do you think that this is a mulligan from either player's side?
Who's on the play and who's on the draw? That's the first question. If Nathan was on the play, I think it's 100% send it back. But if I'm on the draw, then I may keep.
Okay, cool. And yeah, it looks like Nathan is on the play here as he gets his pump up jam ready. I'm ready for this.
I
So
respect that.
it is a mulligan to 6 down here for Nathan, and it looks like Xuan is going to go ahead and keep the 7-card hand, which is ambitious, but I definitely understand it. A little bit of do nothing, but you have one of your most important cards in your hand, Force of Will. And when you're playing Yorion, it's a lot harder to get to those critical counterspells in the main deck as early as turn 1. So you kind of have to play with the hand that you're given when you're playing against combo. Nathan's hand looks really strong here. Just a lot of selection, and you have half the combo in the form of Omniscience. Just need to pick up a little bit more, and then you're on your way for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would say uh this is not a hand I would keep from the Strifle pile, but then again, the pilot knows best, right? Once you've played the matchups, you understand what to value, and it's totally possible that the blue-white deck is slow enough that you can play Uro and just hard cast this Force of Will.
Yeah, absolutely. Uro does ramp you out a little bit. I mean, the other thing that I want to talk about is in this sort of dynamic, I've always felt like that.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, when you know that Brainstorm's on top of your deck, sure, you just never mulligan. I totally understand that. But what I wanted to say actually was that it just feels like this blue-white combo deck.
don't tell.
This blue-white show and tell deck is yeah, I'm laughing at that too. The game one feels very favored for the show and tell deck, And for
Mhm.
that reason, I mean, I think like you just have to hope to get a little bit lucky when you're playing from the Strifo pile perspective. Teferi is very powerful in this matchup, and you also have your own Force of Wills and Cunning Wishes for counter magic, and your just other counter magics in your list to sort of beat up on just like the limited counter spells in the Strifo pile deck. So it feels like you do have to get a little bit lucky in order to win game one specifically. And maybe that's what, Xuen sort of acknowledges and says, hey, I have to get lucky. So I'm just going to play my best here and hope to draw what I can. And he was rewarded for that by picking up Brainstorm straight off the top.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes your hand is a complete mess except for one or two cards, and then Brainstorm fixes it all. But I mean, here's a show and tell on turn 3, and we know about the Force, so let's see what we find.
Cool. Okay. And so this is a turn 3 show and tell. There's a second copy of show and tell in Nathan's hand, 2 copies of Omniscience here. So honestly, like this feels like something that you probably just want. You have to force a will, right? Because the way it works in the blue-white Omnitel deck is that you don't necessarily have to kill this turn in this matchup, but you certainly want to at least get Omniscience into play so that you can use the rest of your deck, like your impulses, like your preordains, and like your just all your other cantrips to just like get through your deck, draw your deck, and then kill them with a Cunning Wish or something like that.
Yeah, I love this play. I mean, you're gonna get to bolt your. Oh, I thought the bolt was gonna come down. Oh wow.
Wait, that's a really
great
good draw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Dak Faden now going to synergize with both Uro and Punishing Fire, dumping both into the graveyard here to draw 2 fresh cards. Get a little bit more selection here, maybe another Forcible to counter another Show and Tell. And worst case scenario, then you can just buy back the... Oh, no, you don't have the requisite mana to buy back Uro because of the Badlands? Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, there's an Omniscience that's coming down next turn.
Yeah. So maybe the plan here is to just put Uro into play off of the show and tell if you play around another one. And yeah, just slam that puppy into play here. Omniscience is going to come into play. The first thing I bet Nathan is going to do is put another copy of Omniscience into play and then just, impulse the perhaps to victory.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Impulse is going to find a copy of Cunning Wish here, and that should just be lethal. Cunning Wish going to pick up some arrangement of win condition here from the sideboard.
And that's game.
Yep. Shared summons for Emrakul and Gristlebrand. The Emrakul cast trigger will give another turn, and then you can attack for 22 points in the air, which is fortunately just the right amount for Lynn Chalice's life total at 21. Sideboarding, though.
Perfect.
Walk me through sideboarding decisions here. What do you like? What do you think is good? What do you think is bad from the
I mean,
blue-white
Beseju
perspective?
is straightforward. Great card in the matchup. I can see Fluster Storms coming in.
Yep.
I could also see potentially Meddling Mages coming in, but I'm not entirely positive. I think we would need to take a look at the other side. I don't think you want swords. I don't think it's necessary. The clock from the other side is fairly slow, so I think minimal cards to bring in is best because your main deck is already set up so well in the matchup.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really interesting point, right? I'm going to give a special shout out to Faith Shield. I actually didn't know what this card was, but apparently it's a 1-mana white instant. Says target permanent you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn. So that's pretty good if you want to protect something like a Teferi, or if you want to protect something like an Omniscience that's in play. If some sort of shenanigans happen with like Astrolabe or Uro on the stack, and then you have Cunning Wish for like this sort of thing. I also really do like the Sublime Epiphany in the sideboard as well, as like a nice like catch-all to Cunning Wish for, but I think the general vibe that you're presenting is that minimal sideboarding, the matchup's already like pretty good, but we're all also playing Cunning Wish, right? So we don't actually have too many cards that we can actually bring in certain matchups. So yeah, I mean, maybe it's just like +1, +2 cards. I mean, in this matchup, I don't even know what you would actually end up cutting because your deck is basically like all combo and all cantrips. So you might just be right here.
Yeah, I mean, you'd be cutting lands for lands, right? And then Fluster Storm for like impulse, maybe something like that. All right, and from the other side, you can probably assume a lot of the bad cards like Bolt are coming out, and Toxic Deluge, and then you have like Pyroblast coming in, which is probably insane in the matchup. And
Yep. I think I like to see the crop rotations come in. Basically, any sort of interactive piece. I think, like even
I
Wasteland
think
for potential Beseiju. There's the crop rotation, Surgical for show and tell. Basically,
yeah,
a lot of the sideboard gets to come in, right? Even like something like the Notion Thief. So,
yeah, I like the Notion Thief a lot.
okay, cool. So it looks like the players are ready here, and the UI is going to catch up with me in a second, I swear. And
Whoa, Strifle Pile, Mulligan,
oh yeah. One sec.
and is keeping a zero lander. No, no,
Okay.
wait,
Well,
what?
yeah, I'm not actually sure what's going on here. The UI is actually completely uh got me here, but it looks like
Losing it.
it looks like the game has actually started, which means I'm gonna go ahead and close this and hope that I can get back in. We're just gonna take a real quick second here to refresh the page, but we get to see a little bit. Honestly, actually, I got nothing.
You can see me.
Yeah, that's true. Let's talk about sideboarding a little bit more here. While we wait.
Yeah, I can go into it. I mean, Notion Thief definitely seems like an interesting piece of tech. I mean, there's a lot of cantrips, so we're gonna see that. We're obviously gonna see the Pyroblast and then Surgical to deal with the show and tell, and then the Wasteland to deal with potential Beseijus. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Push is pretty garbage. So is Punishing Fire. So is Bolt. So there's a lot of cards to bring out. Toxic Deluge. So you could potentially see Scavenging Ooze coming in as an early threat. And you probably definitely want Carpet of Flowers as well. So it's gonna be a pretty straightforward in and out. Yeah. How are things looking?
Pretty good here. I have to like resize some stuff on the fly here, unfortunately. So what I'm gonna do is just transition over to this. Magic Online actually crashed on me, so here we are. We're gonna have to take a look at this for now, which is the just Schwen's perspective here as he's playing here in the post board game. The game's already started. We see a turn 2 Meddling Mage, so that actually did come in from Nathan's side, and that kind of makes sense. Maybe shave on a little bit of cantrip, bring in Meddling Mage for something like Pyroblast. As I like that a lot.
Yep. And we see the crop rotation and because there's a lot of cards that need to come out. We saw like we needed to bring out Bolt, Punishing Fire, Toxic Deluge, a lot of things to bring out.
Yeah. And it appears that oh wow, and check it out. There's the Beseiju.
Yep. There's the Beseiju.
Okay, well,
I mean this Icewind Quaddle is not gonna do much. Does not have that touch. Oh, good draw.
yeah, talk about timely for sure here, right? And this is just getting rewarded here for well, I guess technically we're still technically in like combat or stuff like that. So whatever it is, but I mean, good deck building. We'll put it that way, right? Wasteland is in the deck for situations like these. Crop rotation is in the deck for situations like these, and
oh man,
gotta get rewarded here. Now, while Nathan does have Beseiju in play, taking a look at the hand right now, Nathan's hand has a copy of Teferi, Venser, Gristlebrand, Brainstorm, and a basic island. And one thing that I want to point out is that it's kind of cool actually that
nice, really great draw. That allows Uro to play to come in. Okay, no man. We're just gonna leave open Assassin Trophy.
Sure thing.
I actually don't like this attack.
Interesting. What makes you say that?
Because I could see myself crop rotation for a basic.
Oh, really? Okay. Huh. Okay. Yeah. I see that. Give yourself Death Touch and then maybe block one of the Meddling Mages on Force of
Yeah.
Negation or Pyroblast. And that's kind of weird. It's interesting that we're naming Force of Negation here instead of Force of Will, but I have to imagine that the reason for that is because Force of Negation is something hard castable, and maybe the plan is to just like grind through something like this. Grind through all the counters in Xuan's hand, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But with Teferi on
Yeah.
the stack.
I also just don't think that that point is worth much.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're gonna see. Ooh, that's a great find.
Okay, so we're going to put back one copy of Crop Rotation and I guess maybe hover over a land or an Assassin's Trophy here. I mean, once we get this Notion Thief into play, I feel like it's going to be really, really good for Xuan, right? Ooh,
Yeah.
okay.
Can you imagine how different this game would have looked if this force were to resolve and the crop rotation was still in hand, because it's still on top of the deck.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So do you pitch the Snapcaster Mage here as well? I kind of like it.
Yeah, yeah. So this is, and then these attacks would be turned off because this is a clock. Attacking for 4 is a clock. It's a 4-turn clock. It's fast.
Yeah, and it's not exactly what you would expect here. Like you're playing blue-white combo, you don't actually expect the game to end through damage, but you take what you can when you can, right? And just to clarify, also Nathan did top deck a copy of Rest in Peace, so Rest in Peace also did come in this matchup, which is kind of interesting. When your opponent is playing a number of Uros, you want to be able to have some sort of interaction. Don't totally understand that. We'll see if it's going to be good enough here, because with the Scalding Turn now in play, we do have access to Death Touch here on our Icewind Coatl, but Brainstorm is going to come into play and maybe change the texture of the game a little bit here.
For sure. I mean, what we're seeing here is we're seeing a combo. If Omniscience comes into play, you can put an Uro, and that trigger is going to allow you to Assassin's Trophy the Omniscience.
Oh, for sure. And means that maybe you just don't even cast the Uro at any point. Just keep it in your hand so that you can get that ETB trigger on the stack to interrupt or give yourself an opportunity to play Assassin's Trophy.
For sure.
Now, I'm going to give you a heads up here, Zan. After the cantripping, the Brainstorm, Nathan's new hand is 1 copy of Force of Will and 2 copies of Teferi, Time Raveler. So, honestly, I think Nathan's hand is kind of actually in a good position here. What's kind of interesting to me is I wonder if Nathan is going to attack with the Meddling Mages and trade with the Icewind Coatl to, just keep the Teferi in play. That would be kind of interesting.
I mean, you can always just play the Teferi, and if the Teferi resolves, you just bounce the Icewind Coatl, and it doesn't come down that turn. That means you can plus it the following turn, and it's going to take the Icewind Coatl. It's impossible for the Icewind Coatl to ever kill the Teferi.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay. Interesting.
This is a Notion Thief. And if there was a Teferi, I would definitely play around Notion Thief, because you know that your opponent has 2 in their hand. Their deck.
And boom! It's happening. It's happening. Oh, Force of Will going to take care of the Notion Thief. But I think for me, Zan, this is just another iconic moment in Legacy history that doesn't really get talked about enough. But it was a match, I think it was like Justin Uppel against somebody else. And a Notion Thief actually connected with a Jace Brainstorm and just ended the game on the spot.
I actually remember that. It was during the old opens, right?
Yeah, it was a long time ago. And I remember because like when I saw it, I jumped out of my chair. I was like, this is insane. Like,
yeah, Magic social media exploded.
Yeah.
It wasn't even Magic Twitter back then. It was just Magic Facebook, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a rough spot. And this kind of goes back to that turn that I was talking about, the crop rotation turn.
Okay.
Where you could have prevented a lot of damage and opened up your Pyroblast for the rest of the game, right? Because your Ponders not being able to hit Pyroblast really sucks. Oh, that's a good find. It's a really good find. So you can Carpet of Flowers for 3 mana. And they haven't played land, so they can put the Dak Fade into play now.
Yeah, okay. I like this a lot. Carpet of Flowers is actually kind of just insane also in this setup. I think Carpet of Flowers is typically not as good against Show and Tell because of cards like Ancient Tomb and like off-color basics, but here, like when your opponent is playing a very blue-heavy deck that is just cantripping and splashing white lightly for Teferi, but actually for Teferi, rest in peace, Meddling Mage and Swords to Plowshares. But though half of those are like sideboard cards anyways, I think...
Wait. Are they planning on casting the Uro?
Oh, maybe?
Oh.
Well, the thing is Uro's not doing anything right now because of the Teferi. Or maybe they want to just trophy the Teferi here? Oh, the Rest in Peace. Okay. That's some respect for the... Yeah, that's some respect for the card.
I mean, that's honestly that's a legit game plan.
Now, the downside here, obviously, is that there is a Caracas in play, which will be able to handle the Uro quite nicely, but... If we can pick up another copy of Assassin's Trophy, I mean, we did pitch Snapcaster Mage, but a second copy of Assassin's Trophy would be able to handle the Caracas quite well.
Yeah, I mean, you have the force on top. You just take the force, and the force doesn't save you here. Maybe the play was just hit the Teferi. And have force, and then you're pretty safe, right?
That does guarantee you draw steps. Now, I think maybe what the reason is for Xuan's confidence is that Nathan only has 2 cards in hand, so there's not really a chance of getting combo killed here. That being said, it looks like there's going to be Cunning Wish, picking up, Hovering over Faith Shield, maybe a Swords to Plowshares to move the Icewind Coatl out of play and then connect some damage. Yep, there it is.
Yeah, I mean, this is all going back to that crop rotation turn, not going to lie. But, I mean... It's still a close game. Anything is possible. This Uro is going to definitely do a number, and I'm really excited to see that.
Yeah, for sure here. And I guess the question now is how fast does Dak Faden actually turn us online here? Because, I mean, it might be able to get Uro into play as fast as this turn if we draw the requisite cards, and then we can gain a lot of life here. Oh, Pyroblast is nice.
No, Pyroblast is turned off.
Well, it can kill the Teferi, right?
No, it's turned off.
Oh, because of Meddling Mage. Wow, you're right. Pyroblast is bad. Dang, Meddling Mage just looking.
Yeah, I'm
so
telling
nice
you,
here.
it all goes back to that crop rotation turn. Oh wow, Yorion looking really nice here.
For sure.
Allowing the force to stay up, even though you could have. Well, force doesn't matter. This is Teferi in play.
Okay, yeah. I mean, this Caracas is certainly a headache here, but it's brilliant. I like it a lot because it lets you do something with your mana. You can also start flickering your Arkham's Astrolabe maybe to get a little bit further into the deck here. Now, this is going to be interesting. I wonder who the Meddling Mages are actually going to attack. It's going to be so hilarious, Dan, if the Meddling Mages actually close out this game. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 2, but they're doing a great job.
Okay.
Oh wow, one of the. Not stated cards.
So this means now Caracas is probably going to bounce the Uro, but getting it into play is going to be a huge deal here. We're going to buffer our life total a little
9,
bit. Yeah.
I mean, and now Pyroblasts are probably live. Oh, that's huge. That's probably game now.
What do you target here if you're looking at like Assassin's Trophy? Like, do you go for the Teferi or do you go after the Caracas?
100%. 100% Teferi.
Okay. So 100% has been called. So you trophy the Teferi.
Think about how you can lose this game, right? And once you take care of the Teferi, you're not losing. At least I don't think you are.
Now, I got to say, Xuan going for the Yorion here is kind of interesting. I mean, if you blink the Uro, you do get to gain some life and you're not at risk of dying to the Meddling Mages, in the next turn or whatever. But that's so interesting.
I mean, at worst, you're going to go down to 5, right? And the Uro goes back to your hand. I think it's just you can't be greedy here. You got to just Assassin's Trophy.
I think so too. Oh, but you have enough mana to do it anyways, so maybe that's just the play. But with this line, like, you are at risk of losing your Drown in the Lock. And wow, that's interesting. We didn't Caracas the Uro. I guess it's a card either way. Okay, maybe, yeah, I guess that's fine.
Wait, I I do not like this at all.
Oh,
Because now you're at risk of losing.
wow. Okay, but this is I see the play here though. This does make sense, right? Because Xuan's thinking maybe not this turn, but in the course of a couple turns, I might be able to win. Like if you trophy the Teferi, it's not it's a play to not lose line as opposed to a play to win line. Does that make sense?
But I think you can win. You have more copies of trophies, right?
So one's been used. I think there's another two left in the deck.
Yeah. Then I think it's obvious.
Oh wow! And look at that. Teferi actually just down ticks
It
here
just killed
to
itself. Wow.
draw a
I'm
card.
shocked.
Yeah,
I don't think you could afford to do that.
I really like the Teferi on that board state.
Yeah, I think you just plus. It just turns off too many cards.
Mm-hmm. And
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
yeah, I mean now you get to play your Sky Noodle. It's a 4/5 blocker for the meddling mages. I actually think that may have been huge on this board state. Do you force back?
Well, all of these things should not be an option.
Okay. Oh, I like this so much. There's only 4 cards in the graveyard here, so Drown in the Locking, the meddling mage puts the 5th card in the graveyard, and now you can counter the force of will. And okay, Zan, I definitely understand your perspective here, which is like you may have just died to a top deck show and tell there, but the way this game has played out now, I feel is like quite nice actually.
But
right?
but the Teferi shouldn't have been sacked.
Oh yeah, that much I think is true. I think I agree with you on there.
Right, this whole hand is turned off. None of this sweet stuff is happening if the Teferi is still around. Imagine the Teferi is at 4 sitting on the other side.
Speaking of sweet stuff, by the way, check this out. Snapcaster is going to get blinked by the big bird, and that's going to target the Assassin's Trophy, take care of the second meddling mage here, and we might just have our game completely swung over in favor of Xuen now. I mean, there's still the chance that we get a top deck show and tell to end the game, but looking at Nathan's hand right now, I mean, there's a Gristlebrand, an Omniscience, and a Prismatic Vista, and that is certainly not enough to end the game on from this position. Okay. Bayou is a draw. Maybe not the best one, but it is a draw. You still have Force of Will, so you're feeling pretty good about the situation. And Yorion turning sideways is
scary.
Yeah. Oh, I am so silly. Okay, I got it. I understand why now the Meddling Mage is on Force of Negation, because then you wouldn't be able to cast your own Force of Wills, right? I'm sorry. In the grand scheme of like all these 20/20 cards being like asymmetrical, it did take me by surprise that Meddling Mage, good old Chris Bakula, is an honest do-gooder here, saying neither player could play it. So certainly does make sense.
All right, let's see what happens. All right, the game is getting closer and closer.
Yeah, for sure here.
And I think this is one of the turns where you swing with both.
Yep, because you want to buy back that Uro, right?
Yeah.
And
there's the trade. Because it's also just half your life total at this point.
Mm-hmm. And that makes you susceptible to random things like Lightning Bolt or Punishing Fire. I mean, you could probably expect half those cards to be boarded out, but you never really want to take the risks there. And we're going to have to reset real quick just to make sure that I can capture some stuff here. But yeah, that was pretty exciting, Zan. I mean, what we'll do right now is let's take a look at the sideboarding here one more time. I want to take a look at Xuen's side. Maybe you just like buy me some time here as I figure out what we're going to be doing.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, everything is remaining the same. You can expect Bajuka Bog, the crop rotation, surgical, pyroblast. I would assume the scavenging use is coming in as well, and the notion thief. And what we're taking out is probably the punishing fires, the fatal push, the lightning bolt, and the toxic deluges. I think that's a pretty close to a clean in and out. Overall, I mean, dang, this has been a back and forth matchup. For a while there, we thought we were gonna get beat up by some meddling mages, and here we are going into game 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a little bit of a bigger break here as we just get the players set up. It'll take me about maybe a 60 seconds or so based on the players. We're gonna be right back though. Don't go anywhere as we get this set up. We'll see you guys soon. Okay, and we're back here. Okay, cool. So back into it, setting up game three again. Just as a recap, Lynn Chalice did lose game one here, kept a hand that had Force of Will, Uro, top deck a sick Brainstorm, but Nathan was able to punch through that with just like a resilient combo, being able to select through and pick up the pieces that he needed to win here. And then in game two, we saw Lynn Chalice sort of like dance that delicate line here, right? There was a Teferi that was in play for a long while, turning off critical copies of Force of Will, Meddling Mage on Pyroblast and Force of Negation, and with a couple lucky draws here in the form of Assassin's Trophy, Iceman Coatl's blocking, and what have you, Lynn Chalice was able to bring it out. Xuen was able to take the win there, leveraging the power of Yorion and Uro to just draw through your deck, and more importantly, deal a bunch of damage. One thing that I will point out, though, Caracas looked pretty good there from Nathan's side.
Yeah, I mean, I think Caracas, ever since Astrolabe has been in Legacy and been implemented into these snow control decks, I mean, Caracas is the freest card ever. And it's such a powerful effect. White's not one of the more powerful colors in the format or in Magic in general, but just having access to such a powerful land when it was always such a mana constraint is very, very nice. Super impressive. There's so many legendaries that you got to bounce.
Yeah, and I think it works both ways, right? Like it's so good alongside Uro, and it's so good alongside cards like Yorion. I mean, like imagine the value you get when you use Yorion, just like over and over and over again with like Caracas to bounce it, Carpeted Flowers to like get enough mana to put it back into play. That I like it a lot. But then you also sort of realize, right, that these cards like Yorion and Uro and whatever other legends are very good at drawing cards, but they're not really sticky in terms of board presence. And at the end of the day, like you could draw your whole deck, but you do need to calculate or figure out a way to win. And that's why I think the complementary pieces in Xuen's deck in the form of like Assassin's Trophy were pretty good just at, getting together ways to fight through the Caracas and the utility lands that were, just slowing down the aggression here. So, as a recap, this is what we're looking at right now. This is Xuen's deck. And, instead of just saying recap, let's just get into game three. I think both players are ready here. And we're good.
I do like Yorion a lot more in this shell. It definitely feels like a lot better.
Yeah, I think so too. You've got your Ice Sphinx, you've got your Astrolabes, but
Nah.
more importantly, I feel like it's a just a nice way to add an extra card to your hand if you need something to pitch to Force of Will, and it's also uh valued like a 4/5 beater that just
Yeah,
ends the game at some point, right?
for sure. I mean, like this deck is meant to get into those late game stages, and honestly, it seems super easy. Maybe we should take your version of Snoko and put Yorion in it, because
I
I do miss Oko.
Yeah, I I'm not 100% sure. I feel like Strifopile has its own benefits here. And well, like let's talk about hands for a second here too, right? Looks like Xuen has kept a very oh no, not a risky one. There was a Misty Rainforest on the stack here. That's going to get the blue source. That's going to get Volcanic Island, which will turn on Pyroblast. And there's going to be a critical Ponder here. See what we're looking for. I guess more mana. It would be my gut reaction here. I think Force of Will would also be kind of nice. Okay, all right, interesting here. The Ponder's going to find a copy of Bayou, Dak Faden, and Drown in the Lock. Is that a keep in your mind?
Dak Faden, Drown in the Lock, and what was the last card?
Dak Faden, Drown in the Lock, and a Bayou.
Bayou is a keep. It's a keep.
Okay, yeah. You just want the mana sources really badly?
Yeah, and you respect the black as well. You don't have an Astrolabe.
Okay. I mean, Nathan's hand is shaping together here. Impulse, 2 Show and Tells. Impulse, Show and Tell, Cunning Wish, Seagate, Omniscience, and a Flooded Strand. All powerful cards here. I mean, you've got the combo ready to go, but you just need more protection to make sure that you can fight through the bevy of counters that your opponent might have. I mean, they're playing the Draw Go deck, and for that reason, I think right now, I feel like I'd rather just be in Xuen's position here. Iceman Coatl is certainly a nice payoff here.
It's a good threat. And I mean, if you're able to find another blue source, Snapcaster can replicate that Pyroblast or Drown in the Lock. Oh, that's a good find, though. A Boseiju is going to make things way complicated. And I think the game has swung. Oh.
Okay, so Boseiju, I absolutely agree with you. Now, Xuen's come a little bit prepared here. We've got a couple copies of Crop Rotation. We've got a couple copies of Assassin's Trophy that we can maybe draw towards to sort of handle it. Again, remember, Crop Rotation is going to be able to find an answer to something. Okay, you know what? I was saying a bunch of stuff here, but it looks like we might not be able to do everything here. Now, the good news is that there is a copy of Snapcaster Mage in the hand. So remember, one of the key interactions against Omniscience is that when both players put something into play, the Show and Tell player will put Omniscience into play. But look at this. A Snapcaster trigger on the stack means that now there's not priority to do something like play the Gristlebread or play the Emrakul, right? You can only rely on something like Cunning Wish exactly to sort of respond at instant speed here. And, I mean, it looks like that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, I mean, Snapcaster comes down. There's a trigger on the stack, and we can expect a Pyroblast on the Omniscience.
Okay, yeah. And, there's a surge. Okay, Surgical on Show and Tell is going to be the first step. And I guess this is, maybe Xuen's way of saying, hey, I want to see what's in your hand, see if the coast is clear for me to make all my plays. And I think we're short one card here. Our mana just isn't good enough. We need another blue source to be able to cast both the Drown in the Lock and the Force of Negation and the Pyroblast here, because if we cast the Pyroblast...
Yeah, I mean... Definitely the force is throwing us off here. But if we get a response here, then we have... Like, if a Cunning Wish is cast in response to this, then things line up a little bit differently.
Right. And right now, it looks like Xuen is actually going through the deck, seeing what else is in there. As we exile 3 copies of Show and Tell. CK Restoration actually looks really good here, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, it's super scary. It kind of just like chains the whole deck together. All right, what do you think? How do you think things are gonna play out here? Has the surgical already resolved?
It's in the process of resolving here. I think just to get an idea of like what are the potential draws or to see how your opponent is sideboarded, it's a good idea to just like study the deck here. From this position, if I have to guess, I think you have to lead by pyroblasting the Omniscience, and I think in response, right, then Nathan would just cast Cunning Wish and or maybe just even Force of Will, right? Like you just hard cast the Force of Will for 0 mana since you have Omniscience in play. And if Xuen goes to... Oh, wow. Okay,
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, this is what you have to do this because if you go for the Pyroblast, then you just go Cunning Wish in response, and then you go Force of Negation, they go Force of Will, and you lose. So this is the only option.
Okay, wow. And this is interesting. I feel like from this position, I guess you're still beat here, which is unfortunate.
No, you're not beat. Oh, you are beat to this.
Yeah. Gristlebrand is still very hard castable here. And I mean, like, you could have maybe Pyroblasted the Omniscience here, but just keeping in mind that because you can hard cast it, because you don't have to pitch the card.
Wait. What? Wait. Could you not have Pyroblasted while the Force was on the stack?
Walk me through it. So, all right, you're in Xuen's spot. I'm in Nathan's spot.
Yeah. Well, the Seagate is on the stack.
Okay.
So you force that.
Okay.
With that force on the stack, you Pyroblast the Omniscience.
Okay, and I hard cast Force of Will on your Pyroblast.
Oh yeah, it's hard cast.
Yeah,
so,
I just pay the full. I just Omniscience. I all cast it by Omniscience. Yeah.
So this is a totally different game. Only if that forest was a blue source.
Yeah. I think if that forest was a blue source, completely different game. Absolutely different game, because then you get to cast the Drown of the Lock 2, which would be the kicker. That would put you over the top of whatever it is that's it is that's going on.
That was a dramatic combo finish.
I mean, Boseiju has always it is affectionately referred to as the tree in a lot of legacy communities, and this is why, because it's just so powerful. It says, hey, this game plan you've got of, like interacting on the stack, no, not anymore here. Because I mean, once the Omniscience is in play, like I think the Omnitel player is just like in a better position. But yeah, I mean, congrats to Nathan Lippitz.
Do you think that maybe the right play could have been too surgical on the main phase, just to see the hand and then to decide to cast the Ponder or not?
Ooh, and then maybe like try to find something like Assassin's Trophy.
Yeah, but we might be playing like God here, where we know
hindsight, right? Like we have all the information. So I mean, I definitely think like in the moment that the Xuen made a very good play.
Yeah, I like the play that he made as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely won from that spot a lot. You have multiple pieces of interaction. It just didn't line up as perfectly as we wanted, but still great finals. And Xuen, thank you for playing. And Nathan, is this Nathan's second time winning?
This is the first trophy under the official Octagon series. Yeah, so congratulations.
I think you got second before, right?
Correct. Yeah. Got second place last time. But yeah, welcome to the leaderboard here. Still, Thomas Davies has 2 trophies and is ahead of everyone else here. So I'm kind of excited to see who's going to get the second trophy to keep up with that race here. But on that note, guys, we are done for the day. Thank you so much for watching this Legacy Octagon. We're going to have more events next week. Keep, tuned for that. Stay tuned for that for sure. Be sure to hit follow so you know when we go live for that. And be also sure to check us out at Twitter at Team Lotus Box. On that note, guys, thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Next week, we're going to be doing like 5 events next week.
Oh,
so stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely follow for the schedule.
Yeah. Besides that, let's raid somebody.
All right. We'll ship you guys over to somewhere. Stick around, and we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.